Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call the meeting of June 25th, regular meeting of the Heighton School Board to order. There is an addendum, one motion on the addendum, just so everybody is aware. Roll call. Ms. Wagner.
Mr. Rivera? Here. Mr. Rivera? Here. Mr. David Bradley?
Here.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Here.
Mrs. Gil Mahler? Here. Mrs. Rita Spinelli? Here. Mr. Wayne Wentz? Here. Mr. Andrew Yancer? Here. Mr. Larry Stern?
Here.
9 present.
No presentations this evening. There are courtesies of the floor, and they have received 5 of them, and all are related to the agenda. First on the list would be Mr. Slumzovich.
I believe there have been several motions since then. We cannot transfer ultimately the property. Everything up until the time we transfer the property is preliminary because we have no meets and bounds description. So would there be another motion? There's got to be at least 2 more motions. I mean, one would be to authorize it. Franklin Township wants a 2/3 vote before they spend the money to subdivide, and then there has to be a final vote with the meets and bounds description. Right now, what is Chrisman Field? I can't tell you what it is. I don't know how many feet it is, or no one else in this room. We know where the ball fields are, but nothing more than that.
I understand.
As far as what they want, I mean, has there been surveys over the years? 2 or 3.
What are they leasing? Is that defined?
It doesn't say in the lease what they're just generally they're leasing the property what they've maintained for 40 years, but we don't have a legal description in our leases. We have some drawings.
Right, but there was in that lease it showed and described it as a deed from that guy.
No, that's not right.
That's not right.
Just what you said was wrong.
Okay, so when you pulled up
When you're referring to the deed is for all 20-some acres, includes the school. We don't have a legal description of just the ball field that this board has ever adopted.
Has this board been given a copy of the lease that we currently have between the Franklin Township supervisors and the school district?
I have no idea what the administration has provided the board.
Have we been given it? I mean, I got it from the township, and I shared it with the board, and it describes Crispin Field pretty accurately, and from what I see, but I'm a layman. So did you get a copy of that, Mr. Schwab?
Yeah, but you're looking at, because you have one document, that's a final legal description. That's not the case.
It's a lease.
Until we have a legal description, meets and bounds that have gone through subdivision, everything else doesn't matter.
Like I said, I just wanted to go over because it says that the track is not included, nor the building.
If that's what the board ultimately would agree to, that's what it is, but we have to have a meets and bounds description of it.
And then I also watched the last Franklin Township meeting, and it sounds like they are in agreement to paying for the subdivision
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Bradley.
A student was falsely accused and strip searched by a heightened staff member. Following protocol, the parent invited the superintendent and the entire board to oversee their meeting with the principal and vice principal. Director Beers and I attended. We learned what happened, and it was unsettling. So we, Director Beers and I'm on the policy committee, promised to review the district policies to ensure the parent of this community have an opportunity to be more involved with their students, with our students, their children. The district actions that increase the retaliatory risk of students should be reviewed seriously with the safety of the student in mind. From this event, focus was placed on me and not the serious event that took place within the walls of our public schools. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. For a school to miss that teaching moment reflects poorly on our district. This is about students' rights and the rights of students' parents while their children attend our schools. Students don't have the rights to a Miranda warning, and they relinquish many of their rights under the Constitution, the First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, and even the 14th Amendment, most of which are relinquished when they enter school property, even the parking lot. Policies need to change internally so we can limit the use of power by these officials. Now, the state provides this power, but that does not mean we need to use it. Selective would be the term. We are not an inner city school. We are a community school and supposed to be running an educational facility. With that being said, the response I received by mail in the form of a letter of a report from the superintendent filled with false accusations, the report recommended that I be banned for a year. Yep, the board member that went in support of the community, banned for a year as a citizen, not as a board member, as a citizen to all my children's events, banned my access to any school-owned property and that public property. The overzealous employees that strip searched our district children are not on this agenda. Instead, I am. We have a lot of work to do. Let's focus on protecting the kids and saving the community, as we promised when we got elected. Transparency is sweeping the state, and I am just the messenger. Thank you.
Ms. Beers?
Thank you.
The first comment is related to motion J under section 8 financial matters. This is the Crispin Field subdivision. This is the third time we've seen this motion. I requested some studies to be performed and have a special meeting. None of that's happened, but therefore I agree with Walt and some other folks that I recommended we amend the motion to subdivide the land to separate Crispin Fields from the rest of the property so that the district can maintain ownership and continue to maintain the same ongoing lease agreement with Franklin Township. My next comment is related to motion F under section 10. This is related to the investigative report, which Dave Bradley just commented on. I feel that the investigative report was questionable. The report references 2 incidences, the second of which I was a witness. And even though I was a known witness, I was not interviewed. Following statements from the report conflict with my memory of the events. It states that 2 directors involved themselves in a parent-principal
Barbara Bose.
I too want to comment on the motion for Christmas Field. Subdivide, retain, lease. It's worked for 40 years. Let it work. Give it to the kids. Get it done. Get this over and done with. Everybody's tired of it. Just subdivide, retain, and lease. It's easy. It's a win-win for the district and the FTA and Franklin Township. Okay, the next one is on motion J. I've done some research myself and some investigating. I have found that no one else at the meeting other than the two administrators were interviewed. That's not an investigation. You need everyone's input. I'm not saying you have to believe it, but you got to get it. Makes the investigation a little more believable. It has seemed to me from various things that have happened that there seems to be a pattern of behavior. We had the first motion to reprimand Dave for his emails with PSBA, which was then downgraded because he couldn't email the PSBA at all. It was downgraded to 2 people. It still shouldn't have happened. People shouldn't be blocking his email. I get that. But it was embellished to seem a lot worse than it really was. Then we have the motion for Christmas Field, which we were told passed with 5 votes, a simple majority. Not the case. Need 2/3. Had I not stood up and brought that to light, it would have gone through. It would have been a done deal. So there seems to be a pattern of behavior here. We need to all get along for the sake of the kids. The poor kid who was searched, and he wasn't guilty, which of course you don't know until after you do it. If you're going to do it, and I understand there's certain times when you should. I mean, if there's a weapon involved, absolutely. But the parent should be present. It stops all this. I would have a real issue if my kid was searched without me present. I think you all would. Thank you.
Fred Kemmerer.
First, I'd like to thank the board for allowing me to speak. I've known you for over 40 years, Wayne, Larry. I look to you guys as mentors in what I do with my children and how I deal with the public. I do want to start out by saying that my son was the child that was searched. While I was faced being 100 miles from home and having my son text me saying, "They're searching my body." Now, as a parent, you feel helpless. You think, I hope that this is being done in proper context. With a lot of studying since that day, I found out that the reality of it is actual. Our kids could go to school at any moment and be alleged of something, and they could be strip searched. They could have their shoes taken off, their shorts taken off, shirts down to their underwear, based on allegations. And these things are going to be carried out by people that we should trust, principals, vice principals, knowing that they have children of their own and wouldn't want that to happen to their child. Now, I truly believe that there are many inconsistencies that happened during this year. Many, and I've sent an email to the school board. I met with Mr. Cleaver, and we had a very productive conversation. I was part of that meeting that everybody's talking about, where the quote-unquote perversion was, which wasn't relevant to me. Abuse of power, perhaps. That's about in the end, we have children in our school district that are looking to principals and vice principals. Also as mentors to lead them into adulthood. And the last memory my son has is being strip searched for a false accusation. Now, I don't know about you, but if it was your grandson, your son, you would want to change policy, or at least hold policy where we could have some sort of hold on it where some one person just can't be like the Wild West and do whatever they want. Now, please just understand that I don't come here with any political intent whatsoever. I come as a father, as a taxpayer, and as a steward of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Now proceed with communications. Superintendent's report, Mr. Cleaver.
Thank you. Another successful school year has wrapped up. Oh, thank you, Miss. We had a beautiful evening for graduation on the 15th. I would like to thank Sue, Dave, and Kyle for their efforts on making the evening special for the graduates. I would also like to thank the maintenance staff for, again, all their assistance in preparing for the evening and ensuring everything runs smoothly during graduation night. I would also like to wish the graduates the best of luck as they move into another part of their life, which is, of course, life after high school. We are currently finishing up removing all the items out of Mahoning Elementary School and have begun moving teacher items into the elementary center. We will be starting East Penn Elementary this week, and then once we have completed removal of equipment and materials out of East Penn, we will then move to Franklin, and Shell David will be last because Shell David currently is housing all our summer programs, so that way they'll have people and students in there for the majority of the summer. For the first time in several years, we have a state budget approved and signed before the June 30th deadline. The district did receive a small increase in basic ed funding of 1.27% and a small increase in special ed funding at 1.82% with this budget. So that is a positive for the increase. I know Mr. Fike was aware of that moving forward and prepared the district's budget with that in mind. I'd also like to encourage parents and our guardians to visit our district's website. There's a lot of summer programs that are being held this summer, and I'd encourage you to take a look at that. There may be some that your students, your children may be interested in, and please, if you have any questions, the links are on the website and who to contact. Please reach out to us. We have a number of programs. We have a summer wellness camp. I know we have a lot of title math and reading camps that are being offered. We have many other things that are happening throughout the district over the summer. We have the library open as well, so I encourage people to try and take advantage of that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Cleaver. Finance report, Mr. Fike.
Yes, we're busy closing the year end. Our audit's going to start on July 9th. Also, our next finance committee is July 9th at 6 o'clock, and we're going to have PFM and RBC do a presentation on bonds and if there's possible savings there. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Simply, I will go through my report. At this moment, I'd like to thank all of the our elementary schools for supporting the end of building activities. I know they all had reunions and such over the past months to allow folks to come back in and celebrate the things that occurred in those facilities. So I thank the faculty and staff and PTOs for supporting those activities. A couple other things, as Mr. Cleaver pointed out, graduation was held on June 15th, I believe it was. 162 students, 75 girls, 87 boys. Again, it was a glorious evening for Lehighton Area High School. A couple other things that are happening, just an FYI. Summer school begins July 9th to July 27th. And I believe it's Mr. Lush who has the summer gym class is completely booked. So it's, again, students are taking advantage of getting their PE credits outside of the school year, so it flexes up their schedule. A couple other things. Summer library at Shell David is Wednesdays 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. June 27th through August 15th. Title I Math Camp is July 9th through the 26th. And Title I Reading Camp is July 30th through August 16th. Hopefully all that are able can take advantage of those programs. And that concludes my report. Library report, Ms. Mahalik.
The Lehighton Memorial Library Board met May 29th. The library has started summer library program. Story time is held Wednesday mornings at 10:30. Evening story time is at 6 p.m. Thursdays. One-on-one computer help is also offered at 6 p.m. Thursdays. The library has received an $800 general reading grant, which will be used to purchase incentives and supplies for the summer reading program. The next meeting will be tomorrow, and I will not be available as I will be attending the Mok Chung Trust Community Heroes Banquet.
Thank you, Ms. Mahalik. Legislative policy, Ms. Spinelli.
The only thing I have is what will be in your packet. Whoever is interested in being voting member of PSBA and check that when it comes up on the agenda. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Title I, Mrs. Bowman.
Good evening. The Title I Advisory Council with the Borough, with our Bridging Our Communities, held our 9th annual pool event on June 14th, and the weather really held out on that day for us. It was beautiful. We had great attendance. And I always have to thank Mrs. Helen and Mrs. Everett because they have organized this for 9 years. And we appreciate all who volunteered their time, food, and prizes, all the agencies and organizations who share their knowledge with the community once again. The Title I Parent Advisory Group met on May 30th and June the 12th to continue work on the school-wide planning process. Parents are very engaged and are asking a lot of great questions in that process. So we thank the parents, Mrs. Heckman, Mrs. Masaris, Mrs. Andrews, and Mrs. Torby for their assistance, as well as the title staff, the MTSS staff, Mr. Taft, principals, and of course Mrs. Karpowitz, who's doing all the typing and the input. And we meet again tomorrow to continue that planning. And once again, Mr. Taft noted at the advisory meeting that the parents will be invited to teach your child to read through step-by-step learning, which will be facilitated by Carol Geary, who is a retired superintendent from Pleasant Valley. And he also shared that there will be a potential increase in title funds for this upcoming year, and we usually get finalization of dollar amounts in fall. So that's always good news when we hear we have more money coming in for our programs. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. CCTI, Mr. Yancer.
Good evening. Similar to Lehighton, CCTI held their graduation June 8th. Wonderful evening to celebrate the 93 students taking part in that program. A couple highlights from last year, which I'll cover quickly. They had, up at CCTI, a total of 9 students in the AP, Literature and Composition course, 5 students in the Calculus Advanced Placement course, which are highs in both of those areas. 33 students took advantage of taking the PSAT testing. With the NOCTI, 84 students were tested. 100% of the student population scored advanced or competent in the written portion of those exams. So another wonderful, wonderful academic year that they had up at the school. A couple highlights out of the students from the school. 57 of them entered the workforce. 29 did go on to 2- and 4-year colleges. 3 went on to tech and trade schools, and 4 into the military. So fairly stable statistics from last year for the graduating class. Looking forward to next year, there are a total of 434 pre-enrolled for CCTI for next year, so another high number going into the school year. And I do have a copy of the CCTI yearbook, which I will be giving to the high school administration to place in the library, just so we have record of our students up at CCTI. But again, a wonderful yearbook that they put out. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Yancer. CLIU report, Mr. Wentz.
Okay, we met last Monday, June 18th, at CLIU headquarters. We were informed that there are currently 430 students enrolled in the extended year program, which runs through the summer, which consists of all 14 school districts, which make up CLIU 21. Also, the golf fundraiser was held the following day, June 19th, in New Tripoli. So far, they had raised $23,553 sponsor dollars to benefit the IU students. And we were also informed that Lehighton currently has 89 students that benefit from the IU 21. The next scheduled meeting is set for July 16th. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Wentz. Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Holland.
We had our meeting June the 12th, and under old business, we discussed once again the middle school press box. And I want to thank Ms. Beers. She presented two prints for us to look at. Mr. Spot says he would prefer an elevated press box, and we're still working on that situation. Hopefully we'll have a press box by this fall. The gate at the stadium, it's now set for 6 o'clock in the morning that it opens, and it will close at 8 o'clock in the evening. This is now through till August when fall sports starts. We have a new, well, we're still in the workings of it, but we're looking at a new shed for the band, and that will come out of our budget from this year, not the future year, and that will be a little over $2,000. And the biggest thing, really, I'm concerned about, but I'm not concerned. It's getting the new school ready. I was down there today. People are moving in all directions. It's moving. That's all I can tell you. It's moving. And the kids that are down there, fabulous. That's all I can say for them. They're really doing a great job. A lot of the floors are already waxed and ready to go. The outside is pretty much set. So, yes, look forward to a new building and a new school year. And if you have any more questions, it's in our full report. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holland.
Excuse me for 1 second. Steve, I got an email in reference to the roof of the dugout. Was that addressed yet? Do you know?
Do I know that? No, I do not.
Okay.
Academic Affairs meeting was held, if I can remember the date, I can't at this point. I think it was several weeks ago. Most of the things that we covered concerned the pre-K assessment process and the Voss science curriculum, which is on the agenda under item T. And that concludes my report. Mr. Kraus, L-Tri-C report.
Yes, you all should have received L-Tri-C's graduation report, but I'd like to highlight a few items. Commencement was May 17th at the PP&L Center, and it's always a great event to see students move on to the next chapter of their lives. Academic awards received by Lehighton graduates were Sarah Surface, Distinction in Psychology Award, Alyssa Smith, Criminal Justice Award, and Bethany Hauser, Occupational Therapy Assistant Award. So Lehighton continues to excel there and be well represented. The girls softball team was also the college's first to become District F Regional 19 champions, and they finished 6th in the nation at the National Junior College Athletic Association Division III Championship Tournament. So they were quite excited, and they received a recognition resolution at our last board meeting. Lehighton, getting back to the graduation, Lehighton had 124 high school students this year take dual enrollment courses, which is a pretty good number. That continues to grow. It's an excellent program and continues to provide great value and opportunities for our students. You also received information and notice about the proposed Donnelly Center move. As you know, the Center City developer reevaluated their long-term plans for that block where we were relocating to. Therefore, the college will not be moving the Donnelly Center as proposed to the Morning Call building. There's a lot of moving parts to the development going on there. If anybody's been down there, it's been ongoing for a couple years, but L-Tri-C board will consider other opportunities to relocate as they arise in the future. However, in the meantime, we're reviewing our prior renovation plans since the Donnelly Center will remain at 718 Hamilton Street for now, and our commitment to the Allentown community remains strong. Lastly, there's a motion on the agenda this evening to renew my appointment as Lehighton's trustee on the L-Tri-C board. I just want to let you know that I'd be willing and certainly honored to continue in that capacity. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. Athletic Committee, Policy Committee report. Policy meeting did not occur. The next scheduled meeting is the 11th of July at 4:45 p.m. here in the admin building. Athletic Committee report, Mr. Wentz.
Okay, as you know, it's summertime, and we're just basically running summer camps. However, if you see tonight, we had the 7-on-7 passing clinic, which was rained out this past Saturday, held tonight, and you can see all the teams that took part in that. And the big news was Kyle Spots, our athletic director, has been named Athletic Director of the Year in the Schuylkill League. Our next scheduled meeting is set for August 8th prior to Meet the Tribe Night. So quite an honor for Kyle.
Thank you, Mr. Wentz. And Wellness Committee, Ms. Mahalik.
There wasn't any meeting, won't be any meeting until October.
Okay.
I mean, August. August.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Larry.
Yes, sir.
On the library, if Gail can't make it, is the board going to appoint someone else to be in her stay for the day she's got to miss?
Usually does not occur, but it can. If we have any volunteers that would like to attend in her place, that would be supported. Okay. Thank you, Rita. So Ms. Spinelli will attend the Lehighton Memorial Library meeting tomorrow evening, is it? Yes. At 7 p.m. Thank you very much. Move on to the next section, approval of minutes. I need a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the May 21st, 2018 regular meeting.
Second.
Mr. Bradley. Mr. Wentz, first. Second, Mr. Bradley. Questions? Comments? All those approve, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Financial matters. Need a motion and a second to approve the Lehighton Area High School and Lehighton Area Middle School activities funds for May 2018, closure 2 gold. Mr. Yenser? Ms. Spinelli? Questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to approve the payment of bills. General Fund, $2,286,606.60. Benefits, $429,335.31. Payroll, $1,440,853.88. Debit card, $2,892.80. Capital projects, $1,496,359.69. And the food service fund of $76,886.10 for a total of $5,732,934.38. Need a motion and a second, please. Mr. Holland? Mr. Wentz? Questions or comments?
Yeah, did we check our end of the year budget versus what we projected, and how close were we for the whole year? Are we above or below budget? Do we know?
We're scheduling right below right now. We still have June and a lot of AP coming in, but I figure we're going to just be just under budget.
So we should be under the budget for what was projected from last year. Yeah, from budget for last year. And that budget was 40, do you remember the total budget?
40,600,000.
Yeah, almost 41 million.
Right.
Okay. And we took in roughly 17 million of taxpayers' money. The rest came from the state, or what's the?
About 17, 18 taxpayers.
And then the rest of it comes from the state.
State and federal.
Yeah, and that state and federal pays for education, whereas the taxpayers have to pay for, when I'm looking at this, most of the payroll, the debit cards, the capital projects, food service, things like that. Well, food actually comes from federal, right?
Yes.
So how much of the $17,800,000 of taxpayer money is used to pay for the elementary center? What percentage?
I'm not sure what you're getting at. It's one lump budget.
Right.
You know, we don't say the state money goes to here, the federal. The only thing that's geared towards any one budget line is the federal money.
Yeah.
So the rest of it's, you know,
How
high
you so
school,
choose to
middle
use it.
school, it's education, the whole budget.
Yeah, but between PSERS
Administration,
and
PSERS.
you got funded. You have funded.
Well, if you look
the,
at it this way, the elementary schools are half our population, so half the
Right.
budget is going to be elementary.
correct, but
Yeah.
the unfunded mandates that they're talking about.
It's still half the budget because you have the same number of teachers in elementary as you do in the middle and high school. So it's half the total budget.
Okay, so about $8 million will go towards that process. Thank you. And that's going to show a savings of 1.2, so it would have been 9 something?
Well, actually, last year we used 1.867 million of fund balance. This year we're down to only using 200,000. So the difference is about 1.6 million. Plus we increased all the salaries and things moved up. So there is a substantial savings.
Yeah, but we didn't actually operate with that new elementary, so we'll save another $1 million
Well,
next year.
no, that's the budget I'm talking about.
For
Last
next year.
year we used 1.86 when we didn't have the new elementary. This year we're going to use 200,000.
Coming up, okay.
Correct.
All those in favor of the paying the bills signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to approve the payment of the following projects from the corresponding construction accounts for a total of $1,572,213.70. The numbers are broken down. I will not read them. I need a motion and a second, please. Mr. Wentz?
Second.
Mr. Bradley? Questions?
Andy, as our treasurer, did you get a chance to review them this month?
This is the third month in a row you've asked me that. I review those to my satisfaction, not for others' satisfaction. So,
Well, we trust you, so I want to make sure you got the chance to do it.
there's no need to trust me. You have the bills as well as I do for review.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to approve the following reports. Budget revenue report, treasurer's reports, which include the general fund, capital reserve fund, capital projects fund, and food service fund. Mr. Yancer?
Second.
Mr. Holland? Questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to approve the exemptions from the per capita and/or occupational tax per the attached list. Enclosure number 6, green.
So moved.
Ms. Beers? Ms. Spinelli? Questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to approve the occupational tax assessment changes as per the attached list. Closure number 7, green. Ms. Spinelli? Mr. Yenser? Questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to approve the bid of $838 on property map number 39B, 13B, 16A, and that is in the county's repository for unsold properties. Mr. Yenser? Mr. Wentz? Questions?
Yeah, can you explain how this works? So we're going to approve a bid. Who's paying? Who's buying? Who's getting? What is it?
When people have not paid their taxes for 2 years, it gets exposed to tax sale or Portnoy if it's the school district taxes. After that, if it's not sold, maybe there's a mortgage on the property, so it can't be sold free and clear. It gets exposed the next year to a judicial sale. If there is no purchasers at that point, it's in what's called the depository. It sits there to the Tax Claim Bureau can sell it, and then the court orders that it be sold. And the practice of the Tax Claim Bureau is to contact all the taxing bodies to see if they will agree to the price. We have gotten no taxes for a minimum of 3 years when it hits the repository.
But somebody external to this property, not the district, is buying this $838, and we have to accept that payment in lieu of...
We don't get the full $838. That's the bid for the property.
Yeah, so some individual person
Goes to
is
the
buying
tax
this
lien.
tax sale property for $838, of which some of that's going to go to the Lehighton district, some of it's going to go to other municipalities
and the
that
county. It'll be prorated, yes.
prorated by what they're due. And that person that sold that lost their house to taxes.
Well, it may not be a house. For $838, it's in all likelihood a lot.
Okay, but that property, they lost it for not paying their taxes, and then there was a 2-year period. And then you mentioned this Portnoy company. That's the one.
This is a 3-year, since this is coming from the Tax Claim Bureau.
Okay.
The third year is when it would be exposed to a judicial sale, so it has to be over 3 years. Could be 4, 5, 6, 7 years for all we know. We don't have that information. The Tax Claim Bureau has that.
But it wasn't like it's up for auction, or was it an auction that made the bid?
Well, you have 2 auctions it's been exposed to. You had an auction when the Tax Claim Bureau sold it initially for a tax sale.
And nobody bought it.
Nobody bought it.
Right.
And then you have the judicial sale a year later where there's another auction.
Nobody bought it.
Nobody bought it.
And then this is called a bid, so this is really a person going in to purchase it.
And say, we found this property, I want to buy it.
I want to buy it, right. So it's a buy it now type of process, not necessarily a competitive bid with a timeline or anything
It is
else.
not a competitive bid.
It's just a person that made an offer, a
That's
bid.
right.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a list of all those properties in our district?
No, it's not supplied to us by the Tax Claim Bureau.
So it goes to you got to get that from the county?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Need a motion and a second upon the recommendation from the Finance Committee to approve the final budget of $40,694,460 as recommended by the Finance Committee for the 2018-2019 General Fund budget. No real estate tax increase proposed. Resolution number 17/18-number 5. There's a motion by Mr. Belts, a second by Mrs. Spinelli. Questions, comments?
Yes, this has been advertised, so a minimum of 20 days. It's actually been 25 days it's been posted. And I also put it online so people can look at it so they didn't have to come into the office to see it.
Mr. Fike?
And just a question then. So we're taking from our general fund to subsidize this budget because we're spending more than we're taking in by a couple $100,000 projected currently.
203,000, correct.
Yeah. Are we allowed to use that general fund to meet shortfalls in our budget from overspending?
Yes.
Up to what level? Is there a limit?
It's up to the board. You know, right now that brings us right down under the 8% that the state wants under the Act 1, and that's where we're trying to get down to.
An 8% fund balance.
Fund balance, correct.
And what was the highest our fund balance ever was?
17%.
Just checking.
I wasn't here.
I agree. I'm glad that we're putting this back into perspective, but we're still spending more than we're taking in, and you're using excess taxes collected in the past up to, like you said, 17% excess.
And when I came here, we did a 4 or 5 year plan to try to bring that down to where it should be and pay for cash what we could, like the stadium and things like that.
Okay, so we use the excess taxes collected to pay things for cash, and now we're paying off these budgets. But has there been any conservative nature in reducing our costs?
Oh, I've been constantly reducing our costs.
Correct, right.
And not conservative. I go after it big time.
Correct. And the question is, do you have those benefits that you can share with the public so they can see the work that's being done by your board to help?
We got the consolidation savings, but just this past year we saved over $100,000 on electric just at the high school and middle school because now they've been renovated, and we have LEDs and better efficient systems. Those are just some of the examples.
And I think one of them was just by identifying the people using the copier, that saves a fortune just by accountability.
Yeah, we're actually going to be about 200 cases less this year than we used last year.
Just from a function of accountability. Thank you.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, I have a first by Mr. Belts, a second by Mrs. Spinelli. All those in favor? Any more? No, it's a roll call vote. Thank you very much.
Mr. Richard Bells?
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahler?
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. William Wentz?
Yes.
Mr. Anthony Oxford?
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers? Yes. Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Just a couple comments on this. I want to thank the business department and the business committee, financial committee on working hard and diligently at this again. Mr. Flake commented about stole my thunder a little bit with the reserve amounts that we were using. Proposed budget of $1,867,684 last year. In the first year now with the consolidation proposed, we are looking at a reserve difference of $203,590. So a difference of $1,664.94 from one year to another with the first year of consolidation. We hope to continue to additional savings as we move forward. And not only the savings part that's important is the amount we've been able to add a number of programs throughout the district with this. For example, the STEM program at the middle school, the school police officers, technology curriculum with an instructor at the elementary level, instrumental lessons down at the elementary level, just to name a few. And I know moving forward with the career pathways, it has opened us up with a lot of options as well there, and additional programs being offered at the middle school level now with the new schedule. And I just wanted to thank, again, the Finance Committee working forward with this. And this has been a process. It didn't happen overnight. This plan has been in place for as many years as I could recall about moving forward with the plan of continuing to try ways to save money. If you look at the average percent increase in the districts, I'll say that our local news affiliate, the Time News Touches, our district over the last, I believe, 7 years, Mr. Flake is the lowest percentage increased in the area. So again, this is not something that just happened the last couple months ago. This is something that's been in the works and in place for several years now. So again, I think there's a lot of thanks to this board and a lot of thanks to the previous boards who worked hard moving forward with this plan. So thank you.
But in all fairness, hold on. In all fairness, the taxes were so high for so long, and there was such a fund balance that you're just bleeding off of that overtaxation. You're saving $1.2 million, but how much are we spending in interest every year on that elementary center?
Mr. Bradley, you could spend it any way you want.
I'm just wondering the question of how much are we spending on interest, Mr. Flake?
About 1.6.
So it's a wash from the cash flow standpoint.
Yeah, but then we get 900-some thousand back on the interest from the state and the plant goes. Mm-hmm. If Act 1 didn't come up, you would have saved your money and put it aside, and when you got the $40 million built with that, the state Act 1 does not allow you to set money aside for a rainy day anymore. So,
because too many districts were abusing it with this massive fund balances.
To live with what you have. One thing I did want to mention on the budget, This year, the increase for pension was a little bit over 1%, so the big jumps are not going to be there anymore. The state finally has control of where they need to be. Over the last 4 years, we saw 5% increases in pension every year just to try to make up, and now it's still a 20-year process to get the state pension fund back into where it should be, but they also changed the new pension years as of July 1st. So next year it's going to be a defined benefit and a 401k type plan, so that's also going to drop down the pension liability.
And what's the percentage of the budget that's the pension again?
32% of wages right now.
Yeah.
And the maximum they say might go up to be 34.5 over the next 5 years. We're the last 4 years it increased 5% a year just to get up to where we're at now. So, and the state index and the inflation rate was way, way less than that. So, yep.
Thank you. Need a motion and a second upon recommendation from the Finance Committee to approve the 2018-2019 Homestead and Farmstead Exclusion Resolution number 17/18 number 6, enclosure of green. Mr. Wentz. Ms. Spinelli. Any questions? Ms. Wagner.
Mr. David Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Malloy?
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. William Lance? Mr. Randy Answer?
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers?
Yes.
Mr. Richard Bells?
Yes.
Mr. Larson?
Yes. I need a motion and a second to reconsider a motion to approve the intermunicipal transfer of Christmas Ball Field to Franklin Township, subject to a subdivision and legal description satisfactory to the Lehighton Area School District. Enclosure number 10, green.
I'd like to modify that motion. I'd like to move, and give me a second. I wrote it down. I'd like the, subdivide, retain, and lease. I'd like to have the district subdivide the property. I'd like us to retain it and lease it either directly. I'd like to lease it directly to the Franklin Township Athletic Association for $1 a year for the next, and we'll pick a 100-year lease like the last one. Can I get a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
You want to read the motion, please, again, Mr. Bradley? Did we get a first on it? You're firsting it?
I'm first, and we got a second. So the motion on the table is for the district to pay to subdivide Crispin Field alone, retain the property, and lease it to the Franklin Township Athletic Association for $1 a year for the next 100 years.
What you've done there is essentially a private sale, Mr. Bradley, when you put 100 years on there. When you have a private sale, we would need to have 2 appraisals. I don't think you're going to get a court order. The existing lease is year to year. I don't know that a year-to-year lease to either Franklin Township or the Athletic Association is not considered a sale. A 100-year lease is a sale of the property, and we don't have everything we need.
By the advice of our solicitor, I will modify the motion to make it as it was before, a year-to-year lease. Thank you.
Can I say something since it's a new motion?
Most definitely.
If it was a year-to-year lease, would it have to be reapproved every year by the board?
Yes.
Well, that's not in the minutes. And I've been through them all from 2011 onward.
There's something called a holdover tendency. If someone keeps on the property after it automatically renews if you just stay there. And that's, you don't have to have an official renewal.
Oh, well, that's why it's not in the minutes.
No, it wouldn't be. I mean, it's like you have a tenant that's, the lease is over of the tenant of your home, rental home that you have,
Right,
and they
take
just
good
stay
care of
there.
it, you're happy with them, you just let it
And it's the
not
same,
really a lease,
it
per se.
is,
Because it's not a signed lease.
it's not a signed lease, but it's the same type of thing.
Okay.
Just a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
If we did do this year-to-year lease we're talking about, we will not talk about it next year. So we just let it run on.
It would. Now, we have never had a lease with Franklin Township Athletic Association, so that would have to be new. You know, we don't have a lease that's going to come in.
Holdover agreement after.
No, because we have rented to the township, and the township essentially sublets it. Our lease is with Franklin Township, not with the Athletic Association.
Yeah, but hold on. Right in the lease for the Franklin Township, they're not allowed to sublet it. They don't charge them $1. They're not allowed to sublet. That was specific in that lease.
I'm saying sublet, but it's the same thing as Pfeiffer's Dam. It's the same thing as any public park. You have different groups coming in to use the, quote, park.
Right, but it's not sublet at all. Don't challenge the Franklin Township to say that
But
they're
what I'm
subletting.
saying
That would be a
is-
violation of their lease.
But your motion
Is to the Franklin Township Athletic Association,
and we have no lease
which is,
with them.
you can lease it to anyone, and that's a nonprofit, so the same scenario.
Just a question.
Except for
with
the
this
kids get to play
motion.
ball.
In the event that the board would decide then to sell it, then we'd be back with Franklin Township Athletic Association with nothing again.
Absolutely not. If you lease that property and subdivide it, retain, and lease.
But
They
if
would
you're-
not be at risk.
If you're leasing it, the following year, they could decide if someone comes in and offers the district $1 million for the property, then the board has the right to say that we're not going to lease it to them anymore and sell the property, or go through a process to selling the property.
As anyone else, correct. And that risk also, if the district goes bankrupt and the state comes in and decides to take it back, that's why originally I thought the best way to protect it for the kids was that they bought it.
Now, the Franklin,
This is the second best way.
Franklin Township Athletic Association doesn't have to accept it. We have no indication that they would. We only have the letter from Franklin Township saying they would accept that.
Correct. But if we as a board pass this motion and we're subdividing it because it's still our property, we're going to retain it, and then we're going to lease it, they can always make a arrangement with the Franklin Township municipality if they so desire.
That's not your
Backwards,
motion.
not mine. I just said in the future, if they choose to work with the Franklin Township municipality as they have in the past, they can make their own arrangement.
Does any other groups use the field besides the
Yes.
FDA?
Well,
So this would
we have
preclude
the
it.
Soccer Association uses
This
it.
would preclude soccer or anything else because only FDA would have insurance for their people.
It would only preclude them if they chose to not allow that to happen. If they are friendly to the rest of the organizations, as was Franklin Township, it would be the same thing.
I think the issue that Mr. Fike was
Is the liability
is the
insurance.
liability.
The township has Parks and Recreation insurance, which covers everyone on there, which the FTA would only have insurance for their
I
own
also
events.
I also
not
have a
for the
question
others.
on actual subdivision costs, and I know that auditors like to see costs that are directly attributable to education. What would happen if we pay for the subdivision that's not directly attributable to education?
I don't, well, it's a fine line, but they're not going to question. You're talking a small amount. Athletics we pay for is not directly contributable to education.
It's part of the district's.
Right, and so were the people
provisions.
using it. We've basically used that field for years, or they've used that field. I think if it went to an outside organization, what they're going to question is the liability insurance and, who else is on the field besides the FTA. Now you're telling me the soccer's there, so we'd have to have a lease with every single people that use that field, just like when we rent out our buildings, we make
Yeah,
sure
the
they have liability.
certificate of insurance, just like you do for the church, correct?
Right.
Then the district will have to manage it as opposed to right now, it's Franklin Township.
Dave, would you be interested in modifying
Correct.
your motion to not lease to FTAA but to Franklin Township?
No, because I think the government should not be involved in baseball. I think the FTAA and the kids should have control of it because it's for the kids. And if you don't make it to the kids, they're at risk. Right now, this is the best way to reduce the risk to the children.
I think the difficulty is that people have a comfort level.
This is a dead subject. Let's get this off the agenda. Let's try to get them to subdivide, retain, and lease.
That's what I did. Subdivide, retain, and lease. That's what we're asking for.
We already know Franklin Township's willing to do this.
Well, we're doing...
Athletic Association.
Well, you have this motion first. If I can't get this board to understand that it's about baseball and these kids and let them have it so they have control, then you move it.
We can get that done with a subdivision and a retention and a lease to Franklin Township. I watched the last meeting. It sounds like they're all on board. Let's get this over with.
Yep.
This is just one issue that's got to come off the table.
Let's have this motion first. We have a motion. Right, but we have a motion and a second. Let's get it. Let's see if we can get it to the kids first, which is the best interest for the kids. And then if not, if they don't want it, they should be offered it. I don't know if they've been offered it completely. According to the Franklin Township meeting, but Kevin O'Donnell doesn't run the whole show. So I talked at the at the Franklin Township meeting. Yeah, I agree with that. Let's see if we can get it to fail first. After all, I'm the one that proposed it, so what are the odds of it passing anyway?
Sure, Mr. Stroll.
I'm with Franklin Township Association. I don't have a title or anything, but we really don't want the field. I don't want those guys to have the coaches themselves because they're great at coaching. They do great jobs coaching. But as landowners, they suck. Thank you, sir. You can talk about maintenance and taking care of the field. I am the maintenance man. You're looking at me. You look at the whole maintenance department. I admit, I do the water heaters.
But the benefit of ownership, if you owned it, do you think you'd have a better chance of getting other people to help you?
No. Nobody helps you now.
You don't think so? But that sounds like a management problem more than a...
Have the motion to the athletic association.
Yeah, I don't know if they tried.
Thank you, Mr. Stroll. We'll vote on the amended motion. If you could read that, Ms. Wagner.
So it's a motion by Mr. Bradley, seconded by Mr. Bell, that the district pay to subdivide the property of Crispin Field, retain the property, and lease it directly to FTAA for $1 a year for a year-to-year lease.
And the motion
Thank
was
you.
first by Mr. Bradley and seconded by Ms. Welch. So you may go through the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Richard Belt?
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
No.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhea Spinelli?
No.
Mr. Wayne Wentz? No. Mr. Andrew Yancer? No. Ms. Joy Beers?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern?
No.
So, 5 yes, 5 no, motion denies.
Okay, back to motion J as originally done for the agenda.
Excuse me, I'd like to present a motion. And I have a copy of it here, and I'd like to pass one out to everybody.
So that would be
Okay.
plus failed.
Can I speak now?
You sure may?
Okay, I would like to make a motion that the Lehighton School District agree to subdivide the Crispin Fields only from the Franklin School property and not to include the soccer fields or any other property, and to allow Franklin Township to hold a lease agreement for the 11.8 acres for $1 a year for 99 years, with Franklin Township to pay for all subdivision costs and any other legal fees contained in this transaction. This includes a reverter clause that if the property is no longer is to be used for recreation, it reverts back to Lehighton School District. The lease will allow the fields to be used in the same manner as they have been for the past 39 years.
And now that we learned about this 99, can you adjust it to a year to year?
We can take it back to year.
Thank you.
Year to year.
I second that motion.
As year to year, not the right.
As year to year.
Year to year. Thank you.
So Franklin Township's willing to subdivide it if they're not going to own it, right?
Well, while you've made the amendment, because we're talking about a municipality, you can do it to a municipality for the 99 years as an intermunicipal transfer. I just want you to aware of it. While you've modified your motion, you did not have to, because we're talking about a municipality, if it gets 6 votes. And then we also have to come back for a second vote when there's an actual legal description.
Yeah, but Bill, this isn't a municipal transfer.
But essentially, we can treat it that way a day.
No, this is a lease. This is not a municipal transfer. I don't think we're voting on a municipal transfer. We're voting on retaining it as
Mr. Bradley, when you you rent property at a state park for 100-year
We
lease,
talked about that. We reduced it to not 100 years.
That is still considered a transfer.
We don't want to do a transfer, and I don't think they want to do a 99-year lease if it's going to be considered a transfer.
So with the amendment to year,
It doesn't matter. But what I'm just saying is she could have still had the 90-year. It would be considered and would be structured as an intermunicipal transfer. That's all I'm saying.
So if you go year to year,
And that's fine.
we don't have an intermunicipal transfer. The district retains the property, and we lease it the way it's been leasing forever. Does everybody understand that's how the motion's written?
That's right. You would not have the reverter clause anymore.
Just for clarification, compared to what we have from the letter from the Franklin Township supervisors, this is the request from them as the motion states on the agenda, just so we're all aware. The Franklin Township Board of Supervisors would like to request the Lehighton Area School Board reconsider their vote and approve an intermunicipal transfer of the Crisman ball field only to Franklin Township at no cost. As previously stated, Franklin Township will pay for the subdivision cost. If the decision remains not to enter into an intermunicipal transfer with Franklin Township, the Board of Supervisors would like to request a continuation of the original lease agreement, which has been in place for the last 30 years, plus 30 years. Thank you. We believe this would be the best solution at the present time. And they asked for us to advise us. So it is different, just because I know clarification, it's different from what they were requesting from the township from the letter.
But it should be acceptable. Larry, since Gail's motion is a new motion, can you please entertain the public participation portion of the Sunshine Act?
Thank you for reminding me, Mr. Bradley, as I was going to allow them to speak anyway.
Can you please all vote yes?
Can you come up, please, Barbara?
Sorry.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just Wayne, all of that, I don't know any of you personally. I have nothing personal against you or anything else, but for the kids, let's get this done.
But just for clarification, again, as I've stated before in my concern with this, the board could turn around then the following year and decide to sell the property, correct?
That's correct.
And that's been the case all along.
For 39 years.
That's right. It has not occurred.
That is if they stop using it as recreation.
Right, and that was in.
Well, now you won't have a reverter if it's year to year.
Okay.
I mean, because year to year can be terminated at the end of any year.
They have to take the chance, then we have to take a chance. So. You know, I'm not turning it over. We need to keep that property.
Can I ask the question to Gail?
Yes.
Why not the soccer fields? Why is that not included?
Well, because if the soccer fields are included, then there's no property surrounding the school. So if we try to sell that school, now that the hospital's coming in there, I could see maybe doctor's offices or some auxiliary offices for the hospital coming in and using that building. But if we take the soccer fields away, where are they going to park their cars? Where would the staff go? Where would the patients go? So we can't give that away. And not only that, I identified 4 different areas where the kids could play soccer, and they don't have to use those fields. First of all, I talked to the township supervisors, and Jason and Brenda told me that the Crisman field soccer fields are not being used. Number 2, what is the old football field being used for? Couldn't they put a couple soccer fields in there? What about the practice field from the old football field? They could put a couple soccer fields in there. They could put soccer fields behind Howland's dental office on school district property. There's property there. And there's other soccer fields that are also in the town, Bear Memorial. So, you know, we're talking about 2 soccer fields that need to stay with the school. And why do they have to, you know, we have to give something here. And if they can't give up the soccer fields for the baseball fields, there's something wrong with this. Because there's other places they can play. And they're not using the Crispin Field soccer fields. Am I right, Wayne?
The field was up there, and we were actually going to let the Booster Club use it for football. It's big enough for that. But Lehigh Soccer Club, even though they don't have a representative here, a lot of kids playing baseball and softball also play soccer, and they enjoy that field up there. And I can't sit here and undermine the soccer club.
I'm not undermining them.
They do use that for soccer field because I know we ran into issues with their lawn mowing.
Well, then the
service where they
township
couldn't-
told me different.
where they
you know.
couldn't mow because the kids were playing soccer in the evening. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to look to us, but I mean, I'll ask: is that the case that field no longer used for soccer?
This is not used because of the way the grade of the fields is up there. From what I understand, you do use the bottom of the track. And that's what we asked for because we had a resident come in and said that the people are using it down there.
Thank you.
So we figured we're going to be doing an intermunicipal transfer. We just thought, while we're at it, you know, we'll take that land so we can protect it, keep it for open space for community use. It makes sense to me.
Thank you.
It makes sense for the players, but it doesn't make sense for the community. We're here for the entire community.
Well, it is used for community. It's not used for
Because the community, there is...
Excuse me, I'm part of that community, and my child gets value out of playing sports. And she learns a heck of a lot more than hitting a ball or kicking a ball. So I do get value out of that soccer field, and I know hundreds of other parents who get value out of those fields. So to sit there and say that kids don't get value out of those fields is ridiculous.
I don't think that's what I said.
Yeah, it's not what you said. That's not what you said.
That's not what I
So,
said.
That's not what you said. But at the same time, I also talked to some commercial real estate property sales, and I talked to people that buy some schools, and that parking is very important for this property to maintain its value that we're looking at from the appraisal.
Are you working on negotiating sales?
Absolutely not. I wanted to educate myself prior to a decision and understand what the land, building to property relationships are. And if you take those properties away, the amount of building space versus parking space reduces the value of the property. I own a property that has a very small amount of parking, so obviously it would be different than if I had a lot of parking. And that's the value change. And it's just a basic understanding. I'm sure Rita can help us with that. She has residential understanding. There's a value change. Yeah.
Parking, but that's only if you have a lot of buyers who are looking for 1950 school buildings. I'm not too sure how many.
Or location next to a hospital that's being built that just got sold for almost $3 million. So there's a value to it. Even if they took the building down and just used the acreage and the location and the street, there's still value to that property. And more than it was a month ago, more than it was 2 months ago, way more than it was 5 months ago.
I did identify other places where the kids can get soccer fields. It's not like they're taking anything away and not giving something back.
Thank you.
Sorry. I just have a question. If we're going to allow Franklin Township to pay for the subdivision, once it's subdivided, must it be subdivided building and soccer and field, or can it be subdivided field, soccer field, building? And at that point, we can then decide who wants what, who's going to lease what, and who we're going to lease it to. Does it have to be all or nothing? Can it be in 3 separate parcels, Mr. Schwab?
Yes, it can be. This motion doesn't do it in 3. If you're doing a subdivision and you want it 3 lots instead of 2 lots, no big thing. It's approximately the same cost.
With Franklin Township paying for this, wouldn't they have the right to decide how it's subdivided?
No, it's our property. We decide which portions we'd want to give to them as part of a lease, as the owner, and then from there, And from there, they can make the value decision of whether or not. I'm sorry.
For us, the intermunicipal transfer is important, but to, keep the peace, we're willing to do the lease, but we prefer the intermunicipal transfer, is what we're really looking for. But if we have to retain the lease, that's fine with us, but we're only doing one.
Well, this motion can still work the way it is. If Franklin Township agrees to take Crispin Field off, we then still have the option later on as a school district to do a second subdivision on our own. It doesn't have to happen today. It doesn't have to happen in Franklin Township. It can be.
No, you're exactly right, Mr.
And you can wait until the person wants to purchase the building, whether they want it or not. They could choose.
Maybe find a buyer for the building that doesn't care about the soccer field. Then we do a subdivision or make them pay for a subdivision and keep it.
Excellent.
I just think you all need to vote yes for the children. Because any no votes are against the kids, in my opinion.
We've had a lot of no votes on both sides, so,
All right. I know Mr. Cressley, Mrs. Belts on the board, and I recently met Mr. Fry, and what I get out of him, he's all for the kids also. So if he's telling me they're going to do this, hey, I trust him. Hey, let's do this. We need 6 votes, and we can all. 5. You only need 5. That's better.
We're not doing an intermunicipal transfer.
Yep.
So.
You're leasing?
Subdividing and leasing the 11.88 acres at the top of to Franklin Township, who can then do with what they please.
The school district will retain. Take the reverter.
off.
And the 99 years.
Because it's going to be a
Year to year.
Even though,
that can be changed at any time.
even though as stated by Mr. Fry, the intermunicipal transfer of that property would have been the most preferred solution to this problem. This is the second.
I prefer to do what they want. I don't mean to be smart, and I'm not trying to take my responsibilities lightly, but if we subdivide and just give them Chrisman Field, leave the rest there, and let the intermunicipal transfer go for Chrisman Field. If at the time somebody, and we have the other, want to subdivide the soccer fields away from the building, we can still do that. But for right now, I prefer we just give the Chrisman Field to the township in an intermunicipal transfer the way they requested.
As a lease?
No,
No, I want a lease.
So you're not doing Franklin Township agrees to do the opposite.
They want to do a lease.
They agree to do a subdivision and pay for it.
Right.
Or just Crispin Field.
Right, and that's what I'd like to see happen. If they're going to pay for it,
No, they approved.
they want the transfer.
The Franklin Township supervisor by himself, not as a supervisor, but as an individual that you can trust, like Wayne said, agrees with this motion. Thank you.
Mr. Schwab, is there going to be stormwater issues if we subdivide the properties? And who's going to be responsible?
Is there going to be what?
Stormwater issues.
No. Well, I can't tell you. I don't know. I'm not a surveyor. I don't know what the requirements of the township will be.
So who would be responsible for those if that would happen?
Well, if the school district does it and they want to develop it, of course, as the developer is responsible. But I don't know if there is going to be any. You're speculating before we have a subdivision.
If everyone had their opportunity to speak, I'd like to call the question.
Just for clarification, it wouldn't be the township. It would be the conservation group that would do that, not the township. So really, the county conservation group is the one that takes over that. The township wouldn't be able to be involved in those type of things.
Problems with that property in the past?
With water?
Water.
At the beginning there was, and me and Jerome went up there, dug a trench around, and seems to be working. Jerome died.
Okay.
Jason, you're the guy here, and I appreciate you coming.
Absolutely.
If you, what I want to do, keep it the same. Let you guys take it over, we lease it to you guys, or whatever you want to do, and let the kids play baseball.
Let the kids play.
Thank you, Mr. Wins.
Okay, let's go.
What's the motion?
It's right here in front of you.
Jason, you okay with this? You're the guy.
Well, I would, like I said before, I would refer the transfer, but if you want to vote, I'm fine with you. We just want to.
Okay, let's try.
Absolutely. So,
I think it's time to move on from the issue, but I do prefer the transfer, like originally stated in the law.
right, and I do too. I want,
Can we, yes, thank you. Thank you. Can
Well,
we do motion J as it stands and then come and do this one, Gail? Do you mind if we do it that way? Who has a second? Who has a motion and who has a second?
Gail and Joy made the second.
So would you consider rescinding it so we could vote on the way the township wants it
No,
and then come back?
no.
Okay, that's the answer. No, that's okay, that's the answer. No is the no. Is
No.
the no. Okay.
We read the motion or just do this?
we have no idea.
Okay, so the motion is made by Mrs. Mahalik, seconded by Ms. Spears, that the Lehigh School District agreed to subdivide the Crispin Fields only from the Franklin School property and not to include the soccer fields or any other property, and to allow Franklin Township to hold a lease agreement for the 11.8 acres for $1 a year for year to year, with Franklin Township to pay for all subdivision costs and any other legal fees contained in this transaction. Reverter clause has been taken out. The lease will allow the fields to be used the same manner as they have been for the past 39 years.
Just to make sure everyone is aware then, with this, Mr. Flake and Mr. Holland will still be responsible to cut the grass there at the soccer field, so we'll have to revisit our current mowing service because we were looking, at that, so we'll have to look at.
Why can't that be part of the lease that they take over cutting the grass?
You're not talking about the soccer field.
Well, why can't it be put in the lease that they are responsible? How dumb are you? Jeez.
We're talking about the soccer field, Gail.
Well, why can't they? Why can't they cut the grass? Well, they're leasing it. Well, no, not the soccer. Well, yeah. Oh, the soccer field.
Yes, we're talking about.
I thought you meant the one up on the Crispin field. Oh, jeez. I just want to go home.
Can I do a roll call?
You can do a roll call, Ms. Wagner.
I don't even know where we're at.
Mr. David Bradley.
By the recommendation of the Franklin Township, I say yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik.
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli. No. Mr. William Wentz.
Read that again.
You got it in front of you.
It's
No, it's all changed.
So the Heighton School District agreed to subdivide the Crispin Fields.
Can we subdivide?
We're agreeing for
They are.
For the township?
Yes.
yes,
Oh, okay.
from the Franklin School property and not to include the soccer fields or any other property, and to allow Franklin Township to hold a lease agreement for the 11.8 acres for $1 a year for a year-to-year lease, with Franklin Township to pay for all subdivision costs and any other legal fees contained in this transaction. The lease will allow the fields to be used in the same manner as they have been for the past 39 years.
It's giving you the same thing you have.
The answer?
I prefer the intermunicipal, so let's say no.
Ms. Joy Beers? Yes. Mr. Richard Belts?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Although I hoped that we would perform and do the recommendation that was requested by both the FTAA and the township, and I hope that future consideration of this agreement can be reviewed to accommodate their initial request, I will vote yes to maintain the fields to be used in their current capacity. Motion J. Motion J is now tabled. Or mute, should we say? Moot. On to item K. Need a motion and a second upon the recommendation of the Finance Committee to approve the 2018-2019 insurance package policies for property, general liability, auto, boiler, machinery, workers' compensation, umbrella security, error, and omissions in the amount of $277,288.00. Requestment payment to be made July 1 out of the 2018-2019 fiscal year. Apologies on my reading of that motion. Need a motion and a second, please. So moved. Mr. Belts, Mr. Yenser. Questions or concerns?
How many bidders did we have on this policy, or how many places did we shop?
6 different for liability, 2 for the workers' comp, because there's only 2 that'll cover. Actually, it's a combination. There's like the boiler machineries, I think Hartford, general liability. I'm trying to think who that was, but the workers' comp ended up the cheapest was PSBA.
And I don't have a copy of the actual policy. Did the Finance Committee get a physical copy of the policy to review, or just the quote?
They got the quote and the whole breakdown. The policy is actually issued, but I can show you last year's if you want to look at it.
Yeah, I would like a copy, please.
It actually comes on disc now.
Perfect.
All those in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. I need a motion and a second upon the recommendation of the Finance Committee to approve issuing checks dated June 30th, 2018 to pay invoices remaining for the 2017-2018 school year. Payments will be included in the July 2018 board agenda for confirmation. Motion and a second, please. Ms. Spinelli and Mr. Wentz. Questions?
I'd like to commend the Finance Department and Mr. Fike for keeping such a diligent job by being fiscally responsible per year. I was amazed that when we inspected the books that he actually tracks things within that budget and tries to keep them within that budget. And will even separate a bill depending on which month has or which day has more dates straddling the end of the year. Commendable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments, please? All those in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. I need a motion and a second to authorize the transfer from the general fund to the food service fund in the amount of not to exceed $5,339.00 to close out the school year 2017-2018. Mr. Yenser?
Second.
Mr. Holland? Questions?
I just have a comment. The reason it's not to exceed, this is the unpaid student balances. By federal law, as of June 30th, your year end, you have to transfer that collectible to the general fund. It cannot sit in the food service fund. And the reason I have not to exceed, 2 weeks ago it was $7,000. Last week it was down to the $53.99. It'll probably end up being around $3,000 or $4,000 because parents make the payments, once they got their bill. But it'll still be due, but to the general fund, not to the food service.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fike. Any further questions or comments? All those for indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. A motion and a second to approve the fund budget transfer from the budgeted amount of $110,000 from the general fund to the food service fund. Mr. Wentz? Mr. Yenser? Questions or comments? All those in favor indicate say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second.
Hold it. Madam Secretary, just reference that N was an 8-0 vote. Mr. Bradley had left the room. He did not vote on it.
I raised my hand.
Did,
That was the first
that was for
N.
N, I thought.
No,
That-
N too. N. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, well, I
I
mean,
raised my hand. I thought you saw me. Good catch, Mr. Schwab.
Okay, move on.
yeah,
Thank you.
so long as, we just have to reflect the vote.
Item O, need a motion and a second upon the recommendation from the Finance Committee to approve the following student lunch price and adult lunch price to increase 10 cents and the a la carte prices in the memo attached for the 2018-2019 school year. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Spinelli?
Second.
Mr. Bradley? Comments? Questions? All those in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to approve the continued use of the previous board-approved purchasing cooperatives, KPN, CoStars, NJPA, TCPN, and LVBC. Mr. Yenser? Spinelli? Questions? All those in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second upon the recommendation of the Finance Committee to authorize the business office to develop with the Carbon Chamber and Economic Development Corporation a local economic revitalization tax assistance act.
So moved.
Mr. Belts? Mr. Yenser? Questions, comments?
Do you want to explain what this is, Mr. Fike?
It's a tax assistant. It's not an abatement. Good example, someone buys a property for $300,000. It's on the tax rolls for $300,000. They're going to develop the property and put maybe $2 million into it. When they're done, that property supposedly is now worth $2.3 million. It's going to be taxed on that. The LRTA, the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Act, allows you to phase in that additional $2 million or the new increase over a 10-year period. So the first year would be $300,000 plus 10% of the $2 million. Second year would be $300,000 plus 20%. By the end of the 10 years, it's full amount. It's not an abatement. You're actually still getting what you had, but you're giving an incentive for people to come there. What I'm going to work with the development offices to come up with rules. Like Hazelton did it. They had at least $2 million and 100 employees. I think that's a little bit too much for Lehighton, but maybe 25 employees and 500,000 improvements. They were originally talking to me about Wiseport, and I said, let me talk to my finance committee and let's see about doing this district-wide, because why just look at one of our taxing authorities when we have 6?
So this will also affect the hospital. Will the hospital be a taxable property, or will it be under the nonprofit?
The hospital, St. Luke's, is not taxable. Auxiliary buildings that they're talking about may be taxable. They're talking about physicians' offices. They've talked about rehabilitation, possibly center. They've talked about a radiology center. Offices such as that, if they would come about, would be taxable.
And they fall underneath this program?
May. It may.
It may, but it has to be in an area that's was already zoned commercial and industrial and has not seen the economic growth that you was hoping for. So it's more of the areas like that haven't been used, or your old factories or old commercial buildings that haven't been sold. But I want to come up with a recommendation and then come back to the Finance Committee and
this is just
come back to the board. But this authorizes me to work with them and come up with some recommendations. Come back to the board.
Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to approve the agreement between the Lehighton Area School District and the Carbon Monroe Pike Drug and Alcohol Commission for drug and alcohol primary prevention and SAP intervention services for the 2018-2019 school year in the amount of $28,000 paid through the 2018-2019 Ready to Learn grant. Mr. Wentz?
Second.
Spinelli? Mr. Spinelli? Questions? All those in favor please say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion and a second to approve the contract between James Schwab Clinical Psychologist Services and the Lehighton Area School District for the 2018-2019 school year in the amount not to exceed $30,000 to be paid from the 2018-2019 IDEA grant. Mr. Yancer? Mrs. Spinelli? Questions? All those in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to approve the adoption and purchase of the fall science curriculum for grades 3, 4, and 5 in the amount of $44,929.56, funding through the 2018-2019 curriculum budget. Mr. Yancer? Ms. Spinelli? Questions?
I was at the curriculum committee meeting, I guess we'll call it, and they mentioned that they're going to purchase this curriculum from a third-party company. Do we have a current curriculum, and can we adopt things that are not through a third party? I mean, our teachers have this ability to write lessons plans. Can they emulate this rather than spending $40,000 that doesn't get into the classrooms?
Currently, our curriculum doesn't offer what the FOSS program offers. For example, there's many different types of consumables. There's also animals that get sent to our building as part of this. There's crayfish that are involved. There's owl pellets. There's a lot of hands-on activities. Currently, our science is more of a book curriculum. This is more of a hands-on approach.
I mean, my kid had a crayfish in his classroom in Franklin, and he also had an owl pellet come home.
That's exactly because he was the pilot of this program.
But at the same time, we had a birthday party, and I went out and bought owl pellets for my kids back in the day. And same thing with the crayfish, and same thing through our local butterfly and local other communities. Rather than giving this to an outside vendor, there's a lot of animals available. There's the Lehigh Valley Zoo that has all sorts of capabilities that this money, if we're doing science, between Allentown, Lehigh Valley, Butterfly, and other community service, which you can buy owl pellets anywhere, just so you know. But that's a lot of money going outside our community rather than doing the same things. If we already know what they're offering, I'm sure our teachers are capable of emulating that and providing this value locally. Did anyone even look at this idea versus just wanting to buy something from someone else?
Yes. Can I ask, Mr. Bradley, do you think you're just expecting the teachers to draw this from scratch?
Absolutely not. I believe we have very experienced... No, I believe we have... You asked a question. No. Well, you asked me a question. I'm going to answer it if you don't mind. Well, wait. Do you want me to answer your question first, or do you want to go?
It's going to be your way or no way.
No. I just wanted... Do you want to...
Can I explain?
Sure.
Okay. This curriculum was recommended to us. It was given to the teachers to run as a pilot. Okay? They take this, look at the material. It was at no cost to us, based upon recommendations from other districts. There is not any other district in the state that takes this curriculum, expects their teachers to write it from scratch, and also maintain math, science, social studies, language arts, health, PE, everything else. Their boat is already full to the max with state mandates. This is a curriculum that is highly recommended. I assume if you read your packet, you got all the information from teachers and from students vouching how they love this program, how the interaction of kids increased. It was hands-on. Our teachers do not have the time to sit and run the curriculum from scratch. This is a curriculum that they take, they then mold and make it fit their needs based upon differentiated instruction, based upon all the kids that are in their classroom. So I know you do many things and you do them well, but I do not, nor do I think the board expect our teachers to sit and write curriculum from scratch. This is not a waste of money. If you look at it, when it came down, it's about $4,992 per year per grade level. That's roughly what consumables cost. This also goes through. We looked at the second edition from Paulette. 2002, discounted. That came to over $35,000, and that was no interactive materials, no kits, no long licenses, no living organisms, and that was a textbook. I think if you had asked some teachers here that have used this and piloted this, they found it very beneficial. It's nice to go to a curriculum, take a look,
what do I have, what can I use as my foundation and build upon that based upon my student needs. Because they're trying to learn all the differentiated learning styles for all their kids. There's 25 kids in that classroom. So it's not a waste of money. It's not a third party. It's not canned. It's something that is very beneficial to the kids. And that's why we've used that for a whole year. We've rolled this out now. It's the third year. And it has really increased student participation. You were at the meeting when Mrs. Wentz spoke and said, I cannot believe how the students get excited for FOSS.
Too, and just so you know, this includes the living organisms, the classroom kits and supplies, the online content access, which we wouldn't have access to without it, as well as there is textbooks that do come with it, and also a big part of it is professional development. That is part of it that is included in the cost. And as we replenish things, if in your packet it does make the comment about replenishing kits, we could look to purchase, such as the ALP, those things that need to be replenished year to year. So that's something we could look at.
Well, I noticed they were limited within the classrooms that they had this year, correct, during that pilot program? Yeah. Only a certain number of kids had a certain amount of stuff. And
no. All the kids had all access. It was certain classrooms. All third grade classes had it. Some fourth.
But in my kid's third grade class, help me out, did they have ALP pellets for all the kids, or they had a lottery? Does anybody know? I mean, they cost $1. I'm just wondering. This is not. Make sure you understand. This is not about the money. This is about where you spend it. So what I'm looking at is the idea that you make a decision based upon your resources and where you spend it. So, if I'm not mistaken, teachers have this skill. I agree they're taxed, meaning they have a lot of time that needs to be put towards other avenues for our students. However, once it's established, it is repeatable. You have administrators. We have a community full of people. You have a community full of science within our own community. I believe even Ms. Durst was a science-related skills, correct, Ms. Durst? Yes?
Yes, that is correct. But
Thank you.
What I do, I pay for expertise all the time.
I'm sure you do.
There are people out there that know more than me, and I pay for expertise, and I know all the scientists out there pay for expertise. And I would be happy for my tax dollars to go to pay for the expertise of this well-designed curriculum.
Thank you for your response.
And we will continue to look at that. I mean,
yeah, there's.
Just go and spend and go through Carolina Biological Services for starfish. If they're charged a certain amount, we can get it cheaper somewhere else and local. We'll do that.
I understand that, but what I wanted to understand is they had time to review this over a year. During that period, did anyone actually even talk to these other organizations that provide these services locally that have that expertise that we could tap within our community that not only gives the kids the opportunity to do these things that's hands-on, which I'm very excited about, but it also gives them a mentor within the community to look up to because it is local, and it gives them that opportunity.
Yes, Mrs. Volsky is working with that. We're working with Project Lead the Way. We're also working with Carnegie, with the Da Vinci Center, and going through there, and also from local people as well. So yes, it's as we're working and growing, yes, we're expanding.
And is this a one-year commitment, or is this a multiple-year commitment? I mean, I understand the curriculum's for the year. That's what this is on the budget. But was any agreements made?
This would be for like
for this year? Say it again?
No. If you're looking at that for the $44,000, we have enough supplies and materials that would last us. If you take a look at the breakdown that was in the packet sent to you, that shows it's for at least 3 years.
Correct. And what we just talked about before was authorizing things within a budget year. So how much is this being used per year, and why are we approved? Does it have to be purchased as a package for a 3-year package? Or multi-years?
You get a better price on it.
Okay. And what was the difference? Do you remember?
I want to say it's probably at least, I think it was like around $5,000 to $8,000 difference.
It was over 10%.
10%? Okay. I would like the committees to recognize that we need to think a little bit outside the box and keep things within. I heard that we are hiring expertise to do scheduling. We're hiring expertise to do a variety of things. And those skills, I'm sure, with our talented teachers and our talented administrators, have that ability to do it.
I trust all that with this and our teachers and staff.
Any further questions?
Is this a roll call vote
Yes.
specifically because of the spending of more than a certain amount of money? Or what is it?
It's curriculum and textbooks. You have to be roll call.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Ms. Gail Mahalik?
Yes.
Ms. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Yancer? Yes. Ms. Joy Beers? No. Mr. Richard Belts?
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Yes.
That's 8 yes, 1 no, motion carries.
Need a motion and a second to approve the payment for the consignment agreement for the 2017-2018 pilot of the FOSS science curriculum for grades 3, 4, and 5 in the amount of $30,866.40 funded through the 2017-2018 curriculum budget. Mr. Wentz. Comments? All those in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second, as recommended by the Buildings and Grounds Committee, to approve the service solutions contracts for automated logic in the amount of $17,718 for the high school HVAC and $19,408 for the middle school HVAC per year. Enclosure agreed. Excuse me. Mr. Holland. Mrs. Spinelli. Questions?
Excuse me, Mr. Stern, wasn't the high school done through a ESCO program? So why is it extra dollars for their logic system on the automated if it's part of that ESCO? Weren't they responsible for?
No, they're not responsible for the maintenance after 1 year. Is that, Mr. Fike? Is that how
Well,
it
no,
works?
it's
The maintenance, they just guarantee the
savings.
savings. Yeah.
So if they guarantee the savings, one of the things that they're going to use to guarantee the savings is the control of those items.
Right, and we have to make sure we maintain it, otherwise then it goes, say you didn't maintain it, we don't have to guarantee your savings anymore.
Correct. So is this buying the new process, or is this part of what was installed as part of the ESCO?
From what I understand, this is basically them taking care of the maintenance for us. Am I correct, Mr. Holland?
Yes, it is.
So make sure it's done right, because I don't...
So you don't get the calls.
Maintenance and support.
Maintenance and support of it.
Any further questions? All those for indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Vote passes 8-1. Need a motion and a second to approve employee 204 to attend the Project Lead the Way Summer Training Institute at Bucknell University from July 22 to July 27, 2018, at a cost not to exceed $3,500, funding through the Project Lead the Way grant. Mr. Wentz. Mr. Spinelli. Questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. On to item X. Need a motion and a second to approve the contract with the Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit Number 21 for child abuse recognition and reporting tracking software from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2023 at a cost of $500 per year. Mr. Yancer? Mrs. Spinelli? Any questions? All those in favor say by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to approve employees 382, 624, 1207, 1375, and the school police officers to attend the Alice Instructor Certification Training at the Schuylkill Tech Center South, August 7th and 8th, 2018, at a cost not to exceed $3,700. Funding through the 2017-2018 Superintendent's budget. hold on.
Before you have a motion on this, you may wish to consider this motion as subject to the court approving the district having school police. That's not scheduled to July 10th, 11th, whatever the Tuesday is of that week.
Okay.
July 10th is Tuesday that week.
Okay.
Did you get that, Ms. Wagner? No.
That's the hearing for the school.
That's the date of the... But what I'm saying is, suppose the judge says we can't have, why are you spending the money? I'm bringing that to your attention, that's all. I mean,
You're also allowed to put other people in.
okay.
So we could.
Okay.
So if it's not approved, we could substitute
So,
other.
and there are 2 people interested besides the police officers.
Okay, well, but you're saying the police officers.
We are at this point, so how would you?
4, 5, 6. Why don't we just say it for 6 employees to attend? Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. So scratch the employee numbers. And to approve 6. Yep. Okay. Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve 6 employees, LASD employees, to attend Alice Instructor Certification Training at the Schuylkill Tech Center South, August 7th and 8th, 2018, at a cost not to exceed $3,700, funding through the 2017-2018 Superintendent's budget. Thank you, Andy.
Question?
We need a second.
On your motion, should they
Steve?
18, 19 budget?
No, it's 17 because we're paying it now.
Oh, through the police
Right.
grant.
Early bird.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
that was my question initially to Mr. Cleaver. Sorry, I didn't make it public. All those in favor say aye. Oop. Hold on. Mr. Holland was the second. Yes. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Wait, did we change the motion, right? When I went to the men's room, they changed the motion?
We changed it from the employee
Did you give those
numbers to
people a
6
chance to
employees.
speak before you voted?
Anyone like to speak on
Thank
the
you.
topic? Thank you. Motion stands as read. All those in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. I need a motion and a second that the board hereby establishes under the Act 93 agreement the position of Supervisor of Alternative Education, Assistant Athletic Director, to approve the Supervisor of Alternative Education and Assistant Athletic Director job description. Enclosure 19, green. Mr. Holland. Questions or concerns? Comments?
So why are we adding 2 more employees? Is that right, 2?
No, this is one.
The
There'll
one?
be shared responsibilities.
Yeah, thanks. But why are we adding an extra? I thought we had an athletic director that was going to be part of the maintenance department.
That is correct. He is, taking over that, and part of that also to help him assist with some of his general day-to-day athletic responsibilities. In addition, we have always had discussion about bringing an alternative education program in currently because the amount that we spend to send students to other alternative ed programs. We now with the building projects, we have the room to start our own, and the plan is to bring some of our students back as part of that program.
And what was the dollar value of this person? Do we have that? It's not on there.
We don't have one.
It's just
no.
a job description.
Yeah, this job description of the position. When if this is approved, the person comes recommended, there will be a dollar amount then at that time.
And we don't have anyone within our staff that would like to add this on, or are they trying to add it on to existing employees?
Add the responsibility on?
Yeah, I mean, are we getting, like, we're looking at attrition through the elementary school. Are we taking somebody that would have been on attrition and then moved over to here to be able to fill that space?
Currently, if we would move someone now, we would have to replace that person, so it'd be 6 to 1/2 dozen.
Right. So we're adding an extra person to the staff.
There's
No,
also
because you'd be
cost
re-
savings.
Yeah, for
Cost
students
savings in
coming
this
back.
position as well, as Mr. Cleaver indicated, that we're looking to bring alternative ed students back to our district, educate them ourselves. There is a cost savings to do that than
Correct.
paying someone else to do it. So there is an offsetting cost, so it's not a full burden cost.
And if we would
But a board member would want to know those numbers prior to making that decision.
That's correct. This is, again, just the job description of that person. We're not approving the position.
And if we did, again, to go back to your question, Mr. Bradley, if we would take a current employee, then that person would have to be replaced. And then also, as part of if we would even split the assistant athletic director into a half a position, we still have full boat schedules for our teachers. So we'd still be, looking at 1.5 quote unquote positions instead of 1.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any further comments? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? 8-1. Ayes have it. Under personnel, need a motion and a second to approve the athletic hires as recommended by the athletic committee and extracurricular hires for the 2018-2019 school year. Mr. Holland, Mr. Wentz. Questions, comments? All those approved indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to accept the resignation of the following employees. Corinne McConville, Angela Harris. Mr. Yenser? Mr. Holland? Questions, comments?
Did we do an exit interview on these two employees or ask for the one to be done?
I will not do that until after we accept the resignation. However, I could tell you that one of them is resigning because she is taking a position at the high school, so the K-5 department head would be a little difficult. And then the other one mentioned to us that she had an opportunity at the collegiate level to move up. But no, I don't ask for this. To answer your question that really didn't answer, and I apologize, is that once they accept the resignation, then I will reach out to them and see if they would be interested.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Need a motion and a second to approve the following requests for pre-approval of courses and programs of study for continuing education, items 1 through 4. Mr. Holland? Mr. Yenser? Questions, concerns, comments?
So are these part of the contract or this is an extra?
They're allowed to take courses within their contract. Yeah, current contracts.
How many are they allowed to take?
For the bachelor program, 15, and it's 12. 15 credits? For the but once they receive their master's, then it's down to 6.
Yep. I look forward to getting the contract, Mr. Fike. Thank you.
I did send you last two.
You got them? Excellent. I'm getting the other one. Thank you.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to hire the following summer positions as per hourly rate in the collective bargaining agreement. Items 1 through 8. Motion and a second, please. Mr. Wentz?
Second.
Mr. Spinelli? Questions, comments? All in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. On to miscellaneous. Need a motion and a second to approve the following school enrichment journey requests. 1, middle school theater students. Well in advance. Appreciate it.
Gotta get it before it has to be.
Need a motion and a second, please. Mr. Wentz? Mr. Spinelli? Any questions, concerns? All those in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Need a motion and a second to approve homebound instruction for the following students. Number 54,172. Mr. Belts?
Second.
Mr. Holland. Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No ayes have it. I need a motion and a second to approve the credit waiver for student 58,026. Ms. Valley? Was this Wayne's was second? Mr. Wentz? Questions, comments?
You will see these time after time for credit waivers. They happen for different reasons. Could be they may have been out at a different district. Some districts do not require as many credits for us to retire. For example, a district may require 24 credits to graduate or 21, and they may only be limited by the amount of credits they could take a year to 6. So if they would come to us as a senior, even though they passed all 3 years with their full credit gamut, even with taking a full load of courses here at the high school, they still wouldn't meet our credit requirements, so you'll see credit waivers that will show up time to time for different scenarios. And we'll get you the information on the scenarios so you're aware of them.
Thank you, Mr. Cleaver. All those in favor say aye.
Hold on one second. Excuse me. Mr. Schwab, this letter that we received in reference to this motion, is that now considered a public document since it's part of our package?
I did not see the letter, so I don't know what you're talking about.
It has student information on it.
It doesn't have any names or anything on it.
No.
But here, let's give them a chance to look at it. But okay, good. I'm under the impression, right? So I'm under the impression that since it's part of our package and part of the deliberation of this motion, that those items pertinent to the agenda become part of the public. Say it again.
That should be available.
Correct, because it's part of the pertinent data. Thank you.
It doesn't have a student name on there.
Thank you for the clarification.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion and a second to reappoint Mr. David Kraus as the Lehigh Carbon Community College trustee for Lehighton Area School District. The term of office runs from July 1st, 2018 through July 30th, 2024. Mr. Yentzer? Mr. Wentz?
I'd like to consider that we pass on this motion and allow Rusty, if he'd accept the responsibility, since I believe he has relationships with that L-Tri-C college with some family members. And Mr. Kraus, I believe, how long have you been doing it, Mr. Kraus? 3 years. So changing of the guard once in a while, term limits, is a worthwhile venture.
I think Dave Kraus is doing an excellent job as the representative to L-Tri-C. I'd like to not take that position if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belts. Any further comments?
Yes, I'd like to say something. I want to thank Mr. Kraus personally, because to go out of their way and just be a single individual anymore, just not a school board member from our local community to do this, I want to thank him very much for volunteering and for the previous great job that he's also done before. So thank you again, Mr. Kraus.
And just to echo those remarks, I could speak for Dr. Bieber, the president of L-Tri-C, and she feels exactly the way you do, Mr. Holland, with his expertise and his knowledge and also his wide range of experience for the years he's been on the school board and been involved. She has nothing but praise for Mr. Kraus and the knowledge and the committees that he also takes extra time, because not only at the meetings, they also have committees. So he's also taking time to go to additional committees, and I know he's on the building facilities committee, I believe, is finance. So there's a lot of other time. So it's not just that once. There's many other weddings. Yep. So thank you, Mr. Kraus.
And just as being the former representative, I was representative for several years before I was on the Lehighton Area Board, and it is challenging from a time perspective to be able to attend the meetings that we have here in our own district plus the meetings at the college. There's always conflicts with times. So at some points it is advantageous for an individual, having had the experience of being on a board, or as for myself, it gave me the opportunity to learn how a board functions by being on the LTRI-C board prior to being on the Lehighton School Board. So again, thank you very much, Dave, and we know what a time constraint it can be. So thank you again. As a vote, all those in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve blank and blank as voting delegates at the PSBA 2018 Delegate Authority or Delegate Assembly, Hershey, PA.
I would like to motion for myself and Gail Mahalik to be the voting delegates.
I'll second that.
Anyone else?
I'm also a little disappointed you didn't pick me.
I like hanging out with Gail more than you, Dave.
Any issues? Yeah, okay. Any further questions, comments? Okay, I'll reread the motion. I need a motion and a second to approve Joy Beers and Gail Mahalik as board voting delegates as the PSBA 2018 Delegate Assembly in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Any comments from the public? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion F. We need a motion and a second. Per the recommendation of the investigative report to prohibit board member number 3 from having direct contact with any district employee in such incidences where his or her elected duties require contact with the district employees. The board requires board member 3 to schedule appointments in advance only with the superintendent or business administrator. They shall determine in their sole discretion if the employees are needed at any meeting. Should there be a disagreement as to employee attendance, the board member number 3 may appeal to the entire board at its next regularly scheduled meeting. At its next regularly scheduled meeting, the superintendent or the business administrator's decision. The board's decision shall be final. Further, board member number 3 shall be barred from the high school and the administration buildings unless attending an advertised public meeting or duly called executive session in connected with his or her elected duties or at a meeting set forth above with the superintendent or business administrator. Upon approval of this recommendation, it shall remain in effect for 1 year from date of approval. Need a motion and a second. Mr. Wentz?
Second.
Mr. Holland? Questions, comments?
What does this phrase, the board's decision shall be final, what does that indicate? What color does that add to this?
It means it's not an appealable decision, it's an administrative decision. That's frequently is done.
Okay.
I mean, there's no further appeal process in the district after that.
Okay, so even the board cannot.
Sure.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
It's final. The person could go under local agency law and appeal it to the Court of Common Pleas.
If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Schwab, this can be done to any board member at any time for no reason, report or no report, correct?
You can do it to any third party whatsoever, can be prohibited from coming into school unless you are under the school code, one of the designated folks that are allowed to come to visit the school.
And that includes any parent?
In theory, yes.
And any other contractor?
In theory, yes.
And any other citizen?
In theory, yes.
Thank you. And the time limit can be unlimited, not just 1 year, correct? I mean, my life expectancy is another maybe 30. You can make this for 30 if you wanted, right? The board has that authority and power?
I believe that probably would be considered by a court arbitrary and capricious. It's not a reasonable normal term of 6 months a year.
So the term arbitrary and capricious could also be applied to the method in which this was done?
This, according to everything that I've seen, has followed the policy of the district. The policy of the district is not, I wouldn't consider it arbitrary and capricious.
However, the person that filed this report, which I believe was Mr. Cleaver, is that correct? He didn't.
Policy, he is the compliance officer.
He's the compliance officer. He didn't interview any other witnesses other than the 2 and the employees associated with the district, correct?
I don't know everyone that he talked to with the 2 incidences. I don't know if he looked at video.
Well, let's ask him. Did you look at any other witnesses, Mr. Cleaver?
Again, Mr. Bradley, you have my report, and again, there is more than one incident in this report. You have the report in my report.
But did you interview any other witnesses, Mr. Cleaver?
Again, Mr. Bradley, you have my report.
I know, so the answer is no. Did you interview me as the accused?
Mr. Bradley, you have my report.
Okay. Did you apply the correct policy to the correct person? Mr. Schwab, can you reply to that? Because I know that my attorney looked at that and was concerned that Mr. Cleaver's application of these policies to a board member instead of the student to which they were written could be considered capricious.
They weren't written for a student. They were written for the general anti-discrimination policy of the district, anti-sexual harassment in the district, anti-bullying in the district. These are general policies that this school district adopted. And you're talking 2 incidences here. This is not really the place for a board to decide. They either have the opportunity to say we accept the investigative report that followed our policy, or they could say no, we're not going to accept it, or they could, if this motion would fail, some middle ground by sending the compliance officer back to do additional investigation. But it's a board decision. But they don't have to do any of that because they have a right to ban any third party from the school, period.
Correct.
I'd like to see the video.
Are you familiar with the Barna case in Landsberg, Pennsylvania school right now? Do you know what that's costing to this point? Yeah, you just have the right to do what you want to do, but they have the right to go get an attorney and cost us a ton of money here. Look at the Barna case in Panther Valley, and look what they've spent already. I don't want to say it in public, but like that guy, and look where he's at in a federal court right now and what they've already spent. I hope you use your minds up here tonight when you vote on something like this. They've spent a ton of money in Panther Valley for somebody that probably shouldn't be allowed at a meeting, but he's going to probably win, and they've already spent a ton of money to defend themselves.
So,
That's a board decision.
as part of the deliberation, as part of the deliberation of this motion, I will officially deny the accusations. I also would like to state that the responsibility of the administration and the compliance officer was to provide confidentiality, and it was supposed to be maintained as part of the district policy. So your statement saying that he followed the policy was an error in that regard, correct?
No, it wasn't, Mr. Bradley. You did courtesy of the floor and identified yourself as the party.
He violated that in this report that was already published.
You said it yourself.
So
the
the question,
as a decision maker, has to know the individual.
correct.
Other than that, everyone else has been maintained, but they have to know.
Everyone else but myself. Just checking. This is targeted as means of public embarrassment. It lacked due process with an individual. Due process, a legal right of the individual. The report used truncated language from Policy 348, a policy geared towards sexual harassment, yet in the policy itself, my attorney and others could not find where the allegation of sexual harassment occurred. Can you please identify that, Mr. Cleaver?
Again, Mr.
Let's save us a lawyer and let's do it here.
Again, Mr. Bradley, you have the report.
Okay. The false accusations don't even...
Sexual harassment is not by the person projecting, it's by the person receiving.
So the false accusations don't even violate the policy in this regard. And the actions listed don't constitute sexual harassment legally, Mr. Stern.
It's your opinion.
Okay. And that of a judge. I did not believe that hold on a second. Excuse me. Yep. So I did not feel that this was a fair and impartial recording of these events. No proof that the accuser were even in the same room that the meeting took place. No risk of making false reports were considered. No proof of video, audio, or additional testimony was presented. However, tonight we had two individuals that were actually in the room that contradicted this report. Now, as a board member, I'd love to hear what anyone has to say. So you don't have to, anybody wants to speak up, have at it. I'd love to hear what they have to say before I vote.
Yes, sir. Yeah, my name is Jamie Zellerick, director. A couple of quick points on this. Mr. Schwab, you said that the bullying was applicable to everybody, correct?
Yes.
So what's written here, is this verbatim what bullying is?
I don't know what you're showing. I can't see that far. I'm sorry.
Where it's written here, bullying shall mean unwelcome verbal, written, electronic, cyber, or physical conduct directed at a person or persons by a student that has the intent or effect of blah, 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 lists out all things. So verbatim it says student. If it doesn't actually say that, cool, just kind of check in to see what.
Well, it also says it's committing all student employees with a safe and civil environment, free from harassment or bullying. It's not just for the students.
That's correct.
The policy then defines it as to a student or employee, if you go to number 3, in placing a student or employee in reasonable fear of physical or emotional mental harm. So employees are talking there. Placing a student or employee in reasonable fear of damage or loss of personal property. Again, that's right from the policy.
Yes, sir.
Selected reading.
Yes, sir.
But it really doesn't matter for the board because
I'm just looking for clarification.
Because the board can exclude anyone.
Okay. So
remember, we have 2 incidences here.
I understand.
The bullying came from the first incident.
I'll get there. Would you let me, please?
Sure.
Sorry, I'm not a lawyer. But you are correct. You did list the offenses that a victim would feel. What would constitute the offense? Correct? Those were the things you listed.
That's what's in, well, you're showing me a report. Yes.
Okay. All I can show is basically what I have.
Well, I don't know how this report was disseminated.
Okay.
I don't know how you got it.
I understand that there's an ambiguity of this action of the verbiage.
How did you get this internal report? Because I don't believe there's a right to know.
Mr. Bradley posted it on
Mr.
Facebook.
Bradley's been handing them out to
Well, how do you say you have a problem with confidentiality if somebody disseminates it?
That's great, but this is my questions, my turn. Thank you. So that does state what would occur where somebody would be considered bullied. But this directly says that it has to be done by a student. So just your consideration, not right, wrong, the other, just something I noticed. The other thing I'm kind of curious about the authority of the board in enforcing the no contact order. It says, I recommend the board prohibit Mr. Bradley from making direct contact with any district employees. So if he sees the local principal of a Giant and says, good morning, that violates the sanctions of this, but increases further sanctions. Does the board actually have the authority to do a protection order for every school board member?
No, normally that would be read more narrowly at employee while on their duties.
Okay, so as long as everybody understands that, as far as that's written. So, Mr. Bradley, please, in the morning, don't greet yourself or talk to yourself, have a conversation, because you might violate this and have other stuff. I agree. Okay, but I would like to finish up with this. If even half of what they said your treatment of the other folks was, none of it is. Shame on you.
None of it is. Okay. And not only is none of it is, but we have other testimony today that say none of it is, and they were there. We don't even know that they were there.
That's correct. I have no idea.
That's the part.
Okay.
Okay, now it's my turn. Mr. Bradley, we have asked you several times to please work within the system. You refuse to do that. Unless you learn to play well with the rest of this board, you will be sanctioned, and that's what this is about. Second of all, you talk about how no other board member came to that meeting. I never received Mr. Kemmerer's email until after the meeting. Coincidence? Maybe. Maybe not. So how could the rest of the board have gone there when I didn't even get the message? Mr. Wentz didn't get the message either. So you like You very much like to say that you want to work for the public and listen to the public, but what you want is the public to listen to you and do as you say. And you may get away with that at home, in your business, in the local watering hole, I don't care, but you won't get away with it here. If you can't act like a normal, reasonable adult, put the phone away during meetings, listen when other people are talking, stay in the room as much as possible, then this is the kind of stuff that's going to happen.
If you received the email and you were given time in advance, would you have attended? Of course I would have. Why would you have attended?
And because I did not get the chance to attend, I called a meeting the following day with the principal and the assistant principal to find out exactly what happened. I looked at the reports. I looked at the procedure. I had 2 kids that went through high school. They didn't go through sailing without any controversy. But as a board member, I always respected the decision and the action of the administration because I trust them, and I still do. I went and I talked to these people because I didn't get the email. And I am satisfied that it was handled according to policy.
The question is, which policy do you feel that I violated by attending this meeting?
You, as a board member, as one board member, have absolutely no authority. The only way you could have had authority in that meeting is if you had a majority, if we were all there and we all decided to do something. But you and Ms. Beers were the only 2 there. As I said, coincidentally, maybe not.
The entire board was invited, including Mr. Cleaver, which follows protocol by that parent. Hold on.
But I was not.
One at a time.
I was not.
You were.
Not until after the meeting was over.
That's your ability to check your email, not mine.
No.
We all
I
got
never
the email
got
at the
it.
same time.
I got it from Mr. Yenser because he noticed that I was missed
There you go.
on the email.
No problem. So it's probably because you're not in that system. But here's the question for you. Okay, that's fine.
I am in the system.
You'll have to ask
you
Mr.
can
Kemmerer.
have as many excuses as
You'll
like.
have to ask the Mr. Kemmerer. But I happen to be, just so you know, I happen to be going to a track practice here at the school when I received the email, at which point I called my wife and said, hey, I'm going to go over to the school. A parent needs me.
Well, that's great for you because you had the email in time to do that.
Correct.
I did not.
That's my responsibility. And then I physically called the people I had in my cell phone, which would have been Gail, and I notified her, and I notified Joy because I have her phone, and
Again,
Richard.
if we're talking about people voting together,
Not
coincidentally, you have those 2 in your contacts, correct?
Because I know them, and we were elected by them. But more importantly, in that meeting, no authority as a board member was taking place. We were there as observing and documenting what took place. And that was what was so disturbing, to watch what took place.
And then you sent it out to the entire board as if we were supposed to do something about it. What do you mean no board action was taken?
If you read the email, it was sent to the board, and the action that was supposed to be taken was to put it on the agenda and review what happened here in public so that the public can see what administrators were doing to these kids. Multiple kids, by the way.
They weren't doing anything to those kids. They were searching kids with suspicion because of a report.
Correct, but they searched multiple kids, strip searched multiple kids, and no, this is all part of it, and they did. This is part of it. You're using. Hold on a second. We're still talking. Wait 1 second, please. Show some respect. Hold on a second. We're still talking. I didn't make those accusations, ma'am. I did not make those. It's not. So 2 things. One is I did not make those accusations. Joy knows we didn't make that accusations. Mr. Kemmerer knows those accusations were not made in that meeting. And we have multiple people stating that. So we don't know where they came from. So as soon as it became part, I will. As soon as she asked the question, I'm trying to answer it. Can I answer the question you asked? Thank you. You asked 4 times. As soon as it becomes information for the board to deliberate, it becomes public notice.
No, it doesn't. No.
We don't know who those employees are. We don't even know if they were in the room. I don't know. I did not write this report. Mr. Cleaver wrote this report. Those seeds were planted by the individuals. Hang on. Wait a second. You're off. You're way off. So let's make sure you understand this. Right, it's me. So make sure we understand ourselves. Hold on. Let's be very clear.
Guys, could we just, excuse me, could we please gain some order? Because right now you're not
Let's be
hearing
clear.
anything.
Hold on, wait, I'm saying something because you asked. Let's be clear. I did not write this report.
Correct.
Mr. Cleaver did. Number 2, hold on. Number 2, I did not say the things in those reports, and I have witnesses that show that we did not, and they were not asked. Due process was not taken on my benefit, and the other witnesses weren't even offered the opportunity. So whoever said those things was the person that made that accusation is the one that said those things. Okay, go ahead. So, they don't have their confidentiality was maintained. Transparency is painful for those trying to hide it, number 1. And number 2, the numbers, nobody knows who they are. None of us know who they are. We don't even know if they were in the meeting.
For transparency, my number is 7.
Transparency.
It's okay. It was already published on Facebook of all your people's transparency, so you're good.
That's fine.
I think
now
Stacy
I will let me address something else. And again, I understand your financial implications to the district if we're wrong. There's also financial implications to the district if we're right. Yes. It goes both. It goes both. Let me finish. Our employees are our. It's our duty to protect our employees.
Whoa. It's your duty to protect your district, sir.
I will
and if
not.
they are going to strip search kids, you better be there at that meeting.
May I finish? I'm not going to be on a board of directors which will allow harassment and bullying within the district. I will not be part of that. Policies were followed. If we want to rewrite policies, we bring it back to the policy committee and we address it at that point. We don't freelance and make rules on our own. We have policies in place.
Actually, the testimony of the person in the meeting said he does exactly that.
Once again, I will not be part of a board that allows harassment in this district or bullying.
You allowed the student to be harassed. He was found innocent.
Again.
He was not strip searched.
Yeah.
Again.
Absolutely was strip search. Multiple children.
I am being very respectful. Yes. Okay, I have just one question. We need to define the word strip search. If you're saying your son was stripped down to his underwear, that is the definition of strip search. No, it's not. No, it is not. When you go to an airport, they have you. Can you tell me exactly what was he checked? Was his pockets empty? Has to be empty.
And again,
You're doing more investigation now than this board did, or that superintendent.
Listen,
You're actually asking him a question that wasn't even asked by
Mr.
them.
Bradley, can you
How do you know? How do you know? How do you know I didn't ask that question?
Everybody here has a different
Now, first of all, please understand, we're having discussion. I would like to consider the fact that we're talking about students. So could we please at least be respectful to everyone, and so everyone has a chance to talk. Everyone has a different opinion, and that's fine. But again, talking over top of each other, nothing's getting accomplished. We talked about bringing it up to the policy committee. We could definitely have that discussion at the policy committee. But again, there's things being made, there's accusations being made, and there's different situations out there. And again, there's a report that is completed. The board has this report. There is a motion on the agenda to be voted on. And I just want everyone to have an opportunity to at least talk and be heard. I don't want anyone to continue to be disruptive. Just talk and please be heard, because, you know, no one in this room is going to be able to say everything's 100% right, 100% wrong, like Mr. Yancey said. There's a chance we're wrong, there's a chance we're right. What we make is a good faith effort every day for the safety and well-being of our students, our staff, and everyone in the district. However, with the information I had, there is a report that was completed by myself, that was given to the board, and was only given to the board. However, anybody else has it, I cannot justify, say, or even what that report has, because who knows the report you have is exactly what is this, because it could be a report that someone writes and makes up and sends it out there to them. But again, can we just remember that let's give everybody a chance to talk and be a little bit less disruptive with everyone, because right now there's too many things being talked about, and let's just concentrate on what we have in front of us now.
And I'm just asking because I think everybody here has a different opinion of what the word strip search is, and I think that's setting people off. So if you as the parent can define what you feel what was said or done to your son, then maybe that would put some more people at ease or not. And I just want to clarify that.
Mr. Kemmer?
In the true definition of strip search is when, if you would do your due diligence to look it up, anytime a person is required or asked to remove articles of clothing, that's any article of clothing. It doesn't mean all of it. It doesn't mean down your underwear. Any definition of strip search means you remove articles of clothing, shoes, socks, bandana, reveal your underwear line. Okay? Now, I don't know if my daughter coming to school next year, I'd be comfortable under these parameters over a jewel. If she had a gun or controlled substance that was the accusation, perhaps that would warrant a strip search to an extent where they would get to seeing her stomach, which by our school code isn't even allowed. Now, if you can't even have a school code to allow to see your daughter's stomach, I'm okay with letting my daughter come to this school with the possibility that the next day 2 kids could come up with a situation that she'll be investigated. Okay? As a parent, it's as easy as that. As easy as that. And we have to think about our children, okay? Mr. Cleaver's up there with his report. However, I talked to Mr. Cleaver for an hour and a half, and I brought up many situations that I was concerned about with faculty members. Now, I want to make sure the due diligence that is taken forth for a voted official is being taken forth for students. If we are here caring about students, then Mr. Cleaver has a big, awesome responsibility now, with a whole bunch of stuff on his plate, to follow up on. And we had conversations behind closed doors, because I didn't want to come out in public and embarrass my son more than he's already been. Now, if you don't have the compassion for that, then there's a problem. It's a double-edged sword, Mr. Cleaver. You have an awesome responsibility. If you are putting forth all this effort on a member that was voted in, I would assure you, I would hope, that you put forth that same due diligence with the people who are upholding your policies. Now, I understand that the policies set forth by the state, they were within their boundaries. And I don't refute that. Not at all. But what I do refute is the fact that the testimony on students that were looking to get out of trouble created this whole snowstorm effect on what happened down the road. A kid showed up with a knife the very next day because he was questioned. And then he gave up other kids. And they gave up other kids. All of them, meanwhile, some strip search, some not. Beginning of the year, my son got caught in the parking lot. Was he asked about anything about other students? If we cared about other students at that point, he would have been asked. He wasn't. Why on the last day did we have to go through this instead? That's my question. And to answer your question, strip search, under the true terms of strip search, is when you're asked to remove articles of clothing. If you play strip poker, your first shoe that comes off, are you playing strip poker? Yes.
So
It's
you're
stripping.
saying that he...
Listen, again, this is a board discussion. We don't need to get into discussion.
And as part of the board discussion, this is more information that you asked of that person that is contained in this report. And this is a big diversion because Joy and I showed up at this meeting. We were respectful. We were attentive. We did research prior to getting there on what it means within a couple minutes on our phones because we wanted to learn. And what we found was scary and very unsettling. And because of that, you are now being diverted into attacking Mr. Bradley because I'm an easy target. I can write martyr on my side. Mr. Transparency, go ahead. But the reality is you have individuals that, in my opinion, were turned into informants against other students that put them at risk of retaliation within a school district. And that is wrong, and it should be stopped. And if it's going on now, we should change the policy. We don't need to make kids informants. There's no reason, okay? Now, as part of that puzzle, as part of that puts that kid at risk from other kids. You're in an environment where they don't have their First Amendment right, their Fourth Amendment right, or their 14th Amendment right. I mean, literally. Now, also, to put it in perspective, when a kid's locker is searched and these lockers don't have locks on them, that's a mess. I mean, that's just a whole bunch of mess. And when you're talking about kids that accuse other kids and then you selectively choose who you're going to pick and not pick, that's a whole nother mess that needs to be addressed. And these are the things we, Joy, I, and this parent learned that occur multiple times inside of our district. And there was a lot of kids strip searched on this event. We also learned that when we said, well, what happens if you find something in a locker that doesn't have a lock on it? The person said, that's happened. What do you think? I'm naive? Well, wait a second. What are we doing? So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. You're being diverted. This is not about Dave. He showed up at a meeting because he was invited. He followed protocol. He was respectful. We took lots of notes. Other people took notes. We read the policy. My attorney said this is a witch hunt, basically. If you want to fix the school, make it transparent, get the facts, hold the administration to the table to get due process, which means you ask for multiple witnesses, you talk to other people, you find out what's going on. That was not done. This report does not have any of that in it.
Okay,
thank you.
Mr. Bradley.
Well, hold on. One last sentence. Hold on. No, this is me on the hook here, buddy. So let's take a look at this for a second.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So who put this on the agenda?
I did.
Did you put it on before or after my attorney gave you a dissertation on your report?
I don't have a dissertation from any attorney.
Mr. Schwab, did you get a copy of an attorney's dissertation on this report?
I got an email from an attorney that apparently doesn't know education law and doesn't have the foggiest idea of what the United States Supreme Court has said.
In reference to the application of school policy or in the application of state law?
Application of everything. There were so many errors that my first words were to him, there are so many mistakes here, I'm not even going to address them all.
Thank you, Mr. Schwab.
Mr. Cleaver put this on here saying he actually did this stuff, does that not make us now vulnerable to a lawsuit because he did something wrong? Do these two teachers, can they now not come back and sue us? They cost us a ton of money.
Yes, they can, Mr. Slomsowicz. The teachers the employees that were bullied have a right. No, that's incident number one. Let's not even talk about Mr. Kemmer. Incident number one, the district can get sued. Incident number two, we can be dealing with something with the State Human Relations Commission. That costs the district money. That has nothing to do with Mr. Bradley directly. It involves the district and taxpayers' monies because the employees have separate rights under the State Human Relations Commission and bullying in the workplace as public employees.
I don't know who was present at the first meeting, but I'm saying we have a parent here.
That's the second incident. There are two incidences in the report.
But you're also, at that level, that person giving testimony would be giving sworn testimony with the risk of perjury, correct, Mr. Schwab?
Well, once the district gets sued, yes. At this point, there's no requirement to have it.
So false accusations can be thrown around willy-nilly, as happened here.
You do them all the time, Mr. Bradley.
One more time.
You guys vote tonight on incident number 2 to make him guilty. That allows that.
We're not making him guilty of any. We're just saying that all it is that anytime he meets with a school employee, it has to be authorized by the business administrator or superintendent, and it will be custodialized during that meeting.
No, you're saying that I can't go to my kids' events in this motion, sir. You're saying I can't. Yes, you're saying I can't go on school property. I can't go to my kids' events. I have a child in this district, and he's at risk.
It only says the high school where the incident number 2 took place and the administration building where incident number 1 took place. That's the only two buildings you've been precluded. Where your son is in the elementary center, you can go there. You can go to the middle school.
And also, too, just to point out, Slomsowicz, is that by not acting on the information I got also makes the district very liable. These are employees of the district, and I will do everything in my power to protect them. If they're being bullied, harassed, or whatever it may be, whether it be by an elected official, a board member, a parent, it doesn't matter. When they come to me and they're in tears over things that have happened, yes, I will take as much action as I feel necessary, and I will make a good faith effort every day to keep the employees of this district safe, no matter what it takes. And if that means going to court because someone thinks they said something or they didn't, then that's what we'll end up being. But it also means that when people come to me, they have the trust in me that I will take action and do what I feel is fair to these employees, because no one deserves to be harassed, bullied, threatened, or anything at any time, whether it's a student, whether it's an employee, it doesn't matter. These employees here have rights, they have privileges, as also as being employees of the district, and I will follow through with the policy every time and make a good faith effort to keep these employees safe so they don't have to feel threatened or have to come to my office in tears. Thank you.
But will you protect the board member from false accusations by actually interviewing other people that were in the meeting or witnessed the meeting? Mr.
Call
Cleaver,
the question, please, Mr. President.
will you actually interview
have a
anyone else
question.
that was at the meeting?
Do we get to see any of this information? Do we get to see the video? Do we get to see the sworn statements? Well, if
There is no sworn
where's the-
statements.
where's the- where-
There's no
why
sworn
not?
statements.
Why
No sworn
not?
statements. There's none.
There's no sworn statements. There's no videos.
Who should have a real problem with this, who's saying it didn't happen.
We also have another board member that said it didn't happen, who was there.
Number 2.
We're looking at two separate incidences. And number one is the incidents that took place. This has nothing to do with the procedure that took place. This has to do with the comments from the board members. Thank you.
But there was witnesses at that event as well, and they were not questioned.
Mr. President, please call the question.
Thank you. Mrs. Wagner, could you please do a roll call vote?
Okay, this is for item F. Mr. Stephen Holland?
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik?
No.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Mr. Andrew Yancer?
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers?
No.
Mr. Richard Belts?
No.
Mr. David Bradley?
Absolutely not.
Mr. Larry Stern?
Based on previous behaviors, emails, actions by yourself, yes.
5 more. Carried.
11. Motion and a second to approve the use of school property for items 1 through 14. Mrs. Spinelli. Mr. Wentz. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion and a second to approve the second reading and approval of the following Lehighton Area School District policies. Number 138, Language Instruction and Educational Program for English Learners. Number 2, 311, Suspensions and Furloughs. Number 3, 707, Use of School Facilities. Motion and a second, please. Mr. Holland. Mr. Wentz. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Old business, sale of Franklin and Shell David.
I wanted to talk a little bit about this. Now with the other motion, it may be a moot point a little bit, but I do have information of the district engineer that did the complete survey of Franklin Township, that I would, share anything you need from the district to help you with the process. It may be a little bit, less of an amount of money for the township to spend. Please feel free to reach out to me. I will get everything I can for you. Also, for the subdivision process, just that when that comes back to the district, if the Franklin Township sends it to me, we'll forward it to all the boards. So as soon as I get it, I'll forward the information to the board, because this will have to be discussed, and I'm looking at Steve and Joy and Wayne at Building and Grounds, as part of it once we get that information too. So it'll be something, if we get it ahead of the Buildings and Grounds meetings, then we could discuss it there. But if it comes after Buildings and Grounds meeting, is it okay? And I'm asking the Buildings and Grounds Committee to put it on the agenda, even though if it comes after our meetings, because I'm not sure when their meetings take place, for discussion on a regular board meeting. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and I know theirs will be depending on when, but I'd hate to see it fall like the week after, and then they have to wait. So again, I don't know how long it'll take for the subdivision to be complete, too. But just because of timing, it may just miss the school. I don't want it to seem
normally a subdivision will take 90 to 120 days to go through the township and county process.
Okay. So, but if we get the report after. If we get the report after Building and Grounds meeting that month, I'll still send it out to the entire board so they have it for discussion then at the board meeting. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. New business?
You may want to know, I just got a text and how important Crispin Field is to this area. Our Beirut team just undefeated open the mountain for the league championship. So, thank you.
I'd like to make a new business motion.
Okay.
That the board prints out a board packet for the people in the community to be distributed prior to deliberation so they can be educated as per legally allowed by our district.
Are you considering a complete board packet as we send to the board members?
Correct. The complete board packet you send to board members. The ones I have right here that I'm going to put on this table right now. But I'd make a motion that we do this, probably 2 copies I think would be best, so that people can share and take an opportunity to see what the board sees, because it is pertinent data associated with the agenda and therefore public knowledge.
Mr. Schwab, would it need redaction?
Depends on what's included in the board packet. In most board packets, there's nothing in there that needs to be redacted. But there are occasionally items that need to be reviewed, especially things that involve students, that involve employees, discipline, reprimand, things of that nature that the board may get unredacted that would have to be redacted to go to the public. Normally, there's not a problem, but that doesn't mean every time.
What parameters can be put around that?
Well, Mrs. Wagner pretty well knows what can go out.
Well, you could refer then to our right to know officer and those types of things to get that.
I
if you have a question or whatever.
Yeah. As board secretary, I can redact and go through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm usually pretty good at that.
Okay, Mr. Bradley, would you like to formalize your motion, please?
I moved that the board puts out 2 board packets available to the public for review, and it gets published for their review.
When? As soon as it's published to the
When it goes to us, it gives them an opportunity to review.
It goes out Thursday, then
Publish it.
1/3.
Yep, put them at the district office. You can do a lot of things, whatever you guys so desire. But
They walk away with it. They can come and look at it.
they have a right to see it. They should be given access to it.
Right.
Most boards at other schools put it on the table in piles for anyone that has an interest in seeing it. It gets published as a book and is handed out to every individual that so wants it. I'm just asking for 2 for now. And if they get used and there's value, maybe they'll print some more.
Could we add to that pending redaction from Mr. Fike that he has
No need, because you can't put things in there that are going to go to the board that don't go to the public. You're not allowed to do that. If there's a student name or number, we're not supposed to see it, so don't put it in there. There's nothing in there. You're not allowed to put it in there if it's going to be public as soon as they get here. So it's all pertinent data associated with the agenda. It's how the law works.
Let's still, according to Mr. Schwab, that's not how the law works. So
There are things that you get in your board that can't go beyond board.
Name one.
Well,
Wait, name one.
One,
Yeah.
the report that included your name in it that was disseminated.
But that's only because he put my name in it. He was supposed to put board number 3 on it.
Not when it goes to the decider of fact, which is the board is the decider.
But at the same time, when he put my name on it, he violated school policy. Now I have yes, he did. He has to maintain confidentiality. Other than that, can you name another instance other than when you were witch hunting Mr. Bradley that you wouldn't be allowed to have that information?
Well, Mr. Bradley, we have frequently in the past had student expulsions. The board gets the whole expulsion report, which includes the student name, may include pictures of the evidence, may include a admission because only the board can approve an expulsion.
I just got expelled for a year from the school, and I didn't see a single picture in our report.
You're not a student or an employee, Mr. Bradley. You're a board member.
Excellent,
and
I
should
get
act
a
as
right
one.
to due process because of that. That was violated by this board right today.
Board members who act accordingly like adults don't need to be reprimanded.
Mr. Bradley.
But did they lose their right of due process, Rita?
Let's go back to the initial
Wait,
topic.
can I say something, Mr. Bradley?
I believe you, I'm not sure how you received them, but you probably received appraisals on the schools that we don't get yet. Yeah. I'm saying, is that in that packet or no?
Actually, it was given to the board. That can be considered confidential. So how it works, or what I looked up, it can be considered confidential. So if a board member releases it, and it is found that the value of that property was lowered because of the release of that report, the board can be sanctioned. However, when Mr. Schwab released the value in a public document to the Franklin Township Athletic Association, that value no longer became privileged. And Mr. Schwab's answer was, it may be considered privileged. It doesn't have to be. But when you asked for that information and you were told that it was privileged by the right to know officer, right, that right there could have been appealed. And that's why the right to know officer has a little bit of grunge, because we're learning these things. It's frustrating to learn new things. And I'm the demon, and I'll be martyred every day.
Mr. Bradley, it seems like you have a whole entourage of people that you direct to do different things.
Absolutely not, Rita. However, there is a community filled, there's a community filled of people here. Hold on. There is a community filled of people here that were forbidden from speaking in these meetings in the past. And they were not given a vote for that new school, and they were not given a referendum.
Unsubstantiated accusations.
Again, now, hold on, please. Listen. Okay, please. Guys, again. Order. Mr. Wharton. Again, we need to, again, sit, Mr. Wharton. Mr. Wortman, you need to sit down or you're going to be asked to be, Mr. Wortman, I'm telling you right now.
Sit down, please.
Please.
Mr. Bradley, sit down, please.
Again.
Okay.
Sit down, please.
Mr. Bradley, you had asked about what we redact. Mr. Bradley, you had asked what I would redact. In the FOSS report, there were student comments on that, and some of those names are very unique. I would probably redact the students' names. Okay, but that's the only thing I could see in this report that I would have redacted. Is that fine? Okay.
Okay.
What happens is whatever you decide that you're going to redact, you redact.
Okay. Yeah, that's.
And then if the board asks for it, they can go in executive session. They can have other issues if they need it.
Right. Okay.
For the most part, it's not needed.
Okay.
You can redact it ahead of time.
Okay. All right.
Motion by Mr. Bradley. We need a second. Second by Ms. Pierce to produce a copy of the board packet subject to post-redaction by Mr. Fike for general consumption prior to the meeting. At this point, we will go with two. Okay?
And you can put it on the website because it's all digital, correct? I mean, you send it to us in an email. Then we'd have to make them. But I'd still like two here for people because not everybody has access to a computer, and there's a lot of paper. You don't want them printing it out. They can read it, and then they can come here and look at it.
Get IT to do that.
Yeah, you can put it up in one big zip file so they can do it.
What about posting them here in 30 meetings?
I'm sorry?
What if the only, my thought is, what about even showing them here during the meetings? That way, if someone doesn't have a hard copy, at least they could see what we're voting on here behind us.
The idea is to be transparent. Okay. Anything you do to do that, as long as you speed the meeting up, you're good. By giving it to them early, they can be educated before they get here. If you're going to do it in a meeting, you're slowing it down.
In addition, I was thinking.
Two printed packets and available on the website after redaction by Mr. Fike.
Yes.
So we have a motion by Mr. Bradley, a second by Mrs. Beers, or Ms. Beers. All those in favor? Any further discussion? Anybody?
It's a new motion. They get to talk.
I just asked him, Mr. Bradley. Pending no further comment, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And I have an addendum. Item A, motion and a second to approve the recommendation to hire the following employee in accordance with respective contracts pending clearances. Eric Lush, utility custodian, $28,385, effective July 2nd, 2018. Need a motion and a second, please. Stevie?
Second.
Stephen Wayne, I think earlier, Mr. Bradley, thank you. All those in favor indicate so by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Directors concerned, I need a motion and a second that the Lehigh Area School Board remove Solicitor Schwab and his firm from service as school solicitor and hire the knowledgeable and experienced firm of the Schlusser Law Firm as an intern solicitor until the board can openly advertise a position and select a solicitor. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Bradley?
I'll second it.
Ms. Spinelli? Discussion?
I feel this has not been bid out in years, and there's an opportunity to seek new counsel so that you can, if Mr. Schwab would like to reapply, that's fine. But having an interim solicitor, we get a different set of views for the same amount of money, actually a lot less. And there's value to the board to have different points of view, obviously.
Any further comment from the board?
Did you get a proposal from this law firm to know that it would be substantially less?
They advertise their rates. For solicitors, you just do a right to know. You find out what they've charged at other schools, which I did, and then I got them, and they were significantly lower.
But the one you sent us was for one school district.
No, multiple school districts.
The one you sent us was for one.
I know. I sent you one. But they take a long time to get right to knows back. But I did send you the one for one. And, yeah, so we should save a lot of money.
So if you only saw one because it's taking a while to get it back, how do we know that everybody is less? How do we know that?
People do their due diligence. I did mine. So
yeah, but you only have one report.
Was it lower?
It was mostly zeros, which I'm guessing that attorney works pro bono for the district because he's probably a resident.
Absolutely not. He does not work pro bono. And if you look at the amount of that bill for the month of Hazleton, for instance, and Mr. Cleaver mentioned that he knew the guy, so I figured I'd reach out. But if you look at that monthly bill for that entire district, because they are so transparent, because they open up this information and we don't fight it, we don't have to pay a solicitor thousands of dollars a month to redact things.
Okay, I will let you have a comment.
I don't know if it was the right time or not.
Yeah, sure.
I just had a question that Mr. Bradley kind of just touched on. I wanted to know where this law firm came from. I didn't know why this particular law firm was chosen. I did look up their website. I didn't see anything on there about education law per se. Not to say that they don't cover that, but I saw dog bite, slip and fall, auto accident, a workers' comp. I didn't see anything about education law, so I did text them. I have a text feature, a tab right on their website there that you can do. I texted them at the beginning of this night. They get back to you very quickly. The woman is kind of, like not a secretary, but kind of like when your doctor's office is closed, you call and you message with them. She said she would call me first thing in the morning. She would pass on my information, my name and phone number, and that she would contact me in the morning, or someone from the office would contact me just to let me know. I specifically asked her what this particular law firm's experience was with educational law. So I think that's pretty important when you're a school district. You want to make sure somebody is well-versed when it comes to educational law specifically. So I'm awaiting the call back. I don't know, but you kind of answered my question.
Yeah, they have decades of experience within the school system, and they were the solicitor for Hazleton School District, which is much larger than ours, and their fees that we looked at were much less, but they also have a different attitude, and that was the key. They have a more open attitude towards right to know, parents' rights, teachers' support, and they also have that ideology that it's a community school with local control, so they don't use the state-oriented, downtrodden view. He actually seems to fight for the district to be able to help our students. But,
is he on a retainer, Mr. Bradley?
I'm sorry?
Is he on a retainer?
No idea. I don't know how they actually. I think
because
they're hourly.
That would affect the bills.
Yeah, I know, but I think that they're.
He's
hourly.
absolutely on a retainer, $8,000 a year.
Okay.
Larry, question. Did we not just vote Mr. Schwab in last month for 1 year? And why are we doing this?
Because last month.
Because it's Mr. Bradley's way. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that.
Anytime.
Yeah, no problem. So, but the reason we did is because Mr. Cleaver brought it up. I reviewed it. I found information that would be valuable to the board. He is an at-will employee. It can be changed at any time. I'm just suggesting that we rebid it. I'm not even saying you change. Just take an opportunity to shop around. It can't hurt to shop around. You can collect extra information about people, find out what they're doing.
I believe I recall Mrs. Spinelli said you have a year to do that.
And that's what I was going to say. You have a year to do all that.
So I started.
Why appoint a temporary attorney when we just appointed one for a year? I told you, if next year at solicitor hiring time, you wish to give us every darn bit of information you gathered, that's fine, and we will make a decision. But last meeting, we selected Mr. Schwab for 1 year, and I'm not changing my mind on that based on your hearsay. And just to let you know, Mr. Bradley accused the entire population of the Franklin Township meeting of being immoral. So don't tell me he doesn't accuse the public wrongly.
So, Rita, when I collected the information, I saw value. I'm bringing it to the board to rebid. Doesn't matter. You don't hire a solicitor for a year. He has the opportunity to work for you for a year. But if he doesn't do his job tomorrow, you can get rid of him. He's at will.
Absolutely, but I feel he does his job. Mr. President, please call the question.
Roll call vote? Roll call vote, please. Correct.
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
No.
Mr. Larry Stern?
No.
So it's 3 yes, 6 no, 1 denied.
There are no further courtesy of the floors. I vote for adjournment. The next scheduled meeting is July 23rd, 2018 at 7 p.m. and there will be no exec session.
Prior to that adjournment, you mentioned there's no courtesy to the floor. Why do we make the public fill it out before they even get through the meeting? If some things happen during the meeting that there's value, why can't they fill it out now and then stay while they're here? Why are you sending them away?
We've had that.
If I'm not mistaken, we allowed comment through the whole entire meeting.
You do, but if they have an opportunity now that things may have occurred during the meeting that were not new motions, but on the agenda, which they don't have the right to comment on, they now can learn and deliberate on and basically help us, give us guidance for how you govern them.
Current policy.
That has happened where we've
Current
received.
policy precludes it. We can review that in a policy meeting. Okay? So I need a motion and a second for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Rita, Mr. Holland. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Time 10:10 p.m. Thank you all for attending.
So it's not just me out there saying we're okay.
Yeah. You sent a note.
But I didn't know.
No, and you said, my opinion.